warriors of legend. Hallowed and venerated among the stars themselves. For those bold enough to join this gladiators pantheon, this gallery of champions, there is only one rule that matters. Winner stays on.
Welcome back to the Alliance Tournament 19 Feeders. I am today's host, Black Bart Pirate, joined by a wonderful cast of commentators and analysis, both old and new. I'm also joined by CCP Overload, whose job I have temporarily taken just for the day. CCP Overload, how are you?
I'm great, thank you, Bart. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing super fantastic. I'm in your chair, and you're in my chair, in a different chair. And obviously also joined by Misty, a wonderful, wonderful mystical might, lead head FC of Fraternity sometimes. How are you doing today?
Yeah, not doing too bad, Looking forward to some good games today.
Excellent. Well, we do have quite a lot of games, and if it's anything like last weekend, it should be a wonderful and awesome time. We had very, very many spaceship explosions last weekend, lots of people getting blasted, people getting left out, people making it through, and people that are going to be fighting for their lives today. And we actually have, I think, about 11 or 12 matches today. Some people will be leaving, some people will be making it to our final massive round-robin event tomorrow. So remember to tune in tomorrow as well, which we will go all over about that later. CCP Overload, has there been any matches that you've watched that you were like, oh, this is amazing? Like, are you excited for today? Are you super pumped for any of these teams?
I am. There was a couple of really good matches last week that we saw. Some of them went really down to the wire. But today, after the break, we have Pandemic Legion versus White Flag, which I'm looking forward to. I think that's going to be a super interesting match. White Flag look like they are going to be a really tough team to beat. PL have got a bit of a chip in their shoulder to prove that they're good again. And then we have Boundary Experts versus Fraternity. That's also going to be a pretty spicy match, I think. So some really good matches today.
Awesome. What about you, Misty?
I mean, I'm going to have to second the Fraternity match, of course. I think that should be pretty interesting to see. I'm also looking forward to seeing how Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Assassin Squad eSports, whatever the fuck their name is, performs as well, since they're a tournament regular. So
I thought we had a rule that we weren't supposed to pronounce their entire name.
I don't think we pronounced the name correctly, so it's okay. I don't know if the rule stands.
That's fair. All right, so we do have, like we said, we have both of those matches, or all three of those matches. We have a lot of actually big name TQ teams playing today. So we have CAStabouts going versus Yeet, Pray, Love as our first match in about 5 minutes here. And then Test Alliance versus Hold Control, Bright Side of Death versus Sons of Bane, X877 versus HLVNASE. There's probably a better way to pronounce that, but I am not going to because I will make it even worse. Also, we have Hisec Miners going up against a team to be decided. They have to win first. Pandemic Legion going up against White Flag, Boundary Experts versus Fraternity, Laserhawks versus I Could Do Better, OnlyCows versus Pandemic Horde, Rote, Kapelle versus Shut Up I'm Trying, and of Essence versus Dracarys. So we have a lot of pretty big names, both in the tournament and in TQ. But all of that being said, let's look at this first match. So CAStabouts versus Yeet, Play, Love. I believe this is an elimination match. Is that correct, CCP Overload? I'm seeing you nod. All right.
It is, yeah. This is an elimination match. So the way the format works is round one. If you win your match, you're in to the Alliance Tournament. That's it. No more feeders for you. If you lose, you drop into an elimination bracket, and you have to fight through a whole bunch of matches to get a spot. So the first couple of matches today are both elimination matches. So whoever loses these goes home.
Excellent. So hopefully they end up not going home, but hey, we will see what happens. I do believe we actually have the bans for this match, so maybe we can use our magical powers of analysis to predict something and not look silly. So we have CAStabouts banning the Barghest and the Hinya, and we have Yeet, Pray, Love banning the Barghest and the Curse, with the trickle ban of the Loki and the Sleipnir. Misty, what do you think about that?
I think the Henya ban is a pretty common one to see when teams want to remove some form of control and application. So it implies that CAStabouts don't want to be necessarily dealing with any long-range kiting comps that can project that damage, because the Hyena is very good for helping with that application. The Barghest is one of those common ships that you would see in those cases, and I think that's backed up by the Loki ban as well, which again removes another strong webbing ship from the rotation. The Curse and Sleipnir, I think, are common bans, interesting ban. On the Sleipnir, it's just trying to remove, I think, an element of the Mimitar Rush. I don't think Fly Killer is that common anymore. And for those who are unaware, Fly Killer is using RT Sleipnirs to project damage and just try and volley the small ships in your hostile comp, and then slowly whittling down the larger ones. So yeah, I mean, pretty standard bans. I think it should be fairly interesting to see what they bring.
Pretty standard bans indeed. CCP Overload, do you have any predictions on what you expect to see here, since Misty handled the analysis of the bans so well?
Well, I mean, both sides saying we don't really want to see kiting, and obviously the curses are a super powerful Evor platform with its guidance disruptors and tracking disruptors. So it looks like both sides wanting to face something kind of close in. And usually when you try and make your opponents bring something close in, it usually means you want to kite. Because then they're not going to be able to hurt you from range. So I would kind of expect that they're going to bring something in kind of kitey. Maybe we see something a bit dorky, like maybe some Nighthawks or something like that. But I guess we'll find out soon.
Yes, we did see we saw a lot of Nighthawk and Shield rushes on the second day, I believe. The first day was kind of a combination of all sorts of different stuff, a little bit of Galente rush going on, but the second day everyone went back to I'd say to the Alliance Open. That's almost 3 years ago, where people were running shield rushes into each other the entire time. So we will see about that. I think we've talked about it. We will definitely talk about it further, but I think most of us don't actually like Nighthawk shield rushes. So yeah, everyone's kind of like, yeah. They are interesting to cast, but we will see if they're any good. Other than that, the channel point predictions are in. We will actually talk about channel points a little bit more after this match, because I know some people were kind of asking questions about it. But with all that being said, it does look like it is massively in favor of Yeet, Pray, Love here. So I'm going to get some quick predictions here. Misty, which team do you think is going to win?
Based on the two comps that they brought, or rather both teams brought last weekend, I think CAStabouts has a good shot at winning, to be honest. If they bring the same thing, I think if they execute well, they'll have a solid chance at getting through.
All right, and CCP Overload, which team do you think is going to be the glorious winners here?
Well, I've never actually seen Twitch chat be wrong about anything, so I'm going to go with what they say, which is Eat, Pray, Love.
You've never seen Twitch chat be wrong about anything.
Yeah, it's because I don't read.
Excellent. That is probably the best thing to do, is to just not read Twitch chat. I personally love reading Twitch chat. I think that they have fantastic insights, and you could say that I'm one of the people in Twitch chat. So I'm going to say that Yeet, Pray, Love is going to win here, just to be super unoriginal. However, I bet all of my points on the other team because the odds were so good. And with that, both teams have actually landed in the arena, and we are going to send it over to our commentary pair of Fear and Alec.
Hello and welcome to the arena. My name is Fear Vana, joined by Alexib Card, and on the red side of the arena, it is CAStabouts, bringing dual Megathron Navy plus a Dami Navy, lots of blasters, lots of high damage. We'll see how this looks. What have Yeet, Pray, Love brought?
Eat, Pray, Love have a very brawly drone setup with double Armageddon Navy issues, then EOS, 2 Tech 2 logistic ships, and a Sentinel for control. Very interesting matchup here. It is going to be bloody and fast.
Indeed it is. I'm just trying to double check and verify that these are in fact blasters, and it does look like that is the case here. From these Megathron navies and Dominix Navy issues. I will say it's rapid heavies on the Armageddon Navy issues. This is a comp or something similar to a comp that we've seen Yeet, Pray, Love use very effectively against a lot of different setups, including Shield Rush. But they did lose last week to plug and play in this exact comp versus a Shield Rush matchup. This time they're up against something a little bit more armor centric and a little bit slower. So we'll see how that works out for them. Off the start, a little bit of damage going on to the Sentinel as they want to take the E-War off the field. Heretic also getting a bit of damage from CAStabouts as well.
Meanwhile, the Myrmidon Navy issue and the Hurricane Fleet issue drawing the majority of the aggro. It looks like they're now choosing to consolidate onto the Myrmidon Navy issue of the CAStabouts team. He's taking a withering amount of fire as he's beginning to dip into armor here, going down slowly but surely, as focus fire seems to be a slight bit of a problem. They're still doing damage to the Hurricane Fleet issue, and now the drones have moved over. This Myrmidon is about to be hit with an extra wave of drones. He's currently sitting in half armor and dropping rather rapidly.
But as far as them and the Sentinel already down onto hull, the E-War trade is pretty important as you look at the control bar from the side of Yeet, Pray, Love. It's very girthy, especially compared to their attack bar, kind of a difference between the two teams. We see this Ramadan Navy issue is all the way into 35% armor remaining, and I'd have to imagine that with the dual T1 Logi frags, it's not going to hold for much longer. As the Sentinel actually has caught reps completely from this Deacon Thalia combo, was able to burn away from the guns, and is living to win for the time being. Ivory Imp Nova will be first blood of the match, going over to Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah, the Sentinel of Ashura Zem is surrounded by a cloud of warriors, but the logistics are keeping up despite that. As I say that, he just drops. Possibly a capacitor issue, not sure, but that is a good trade for Eat, Pray, Love. They're loving that trade right now, even as Chadwick's Armageddon does start to take a pretty worrying amount of damage.
Yeah, it's in a half armor right now. They're swapping their focus onto J.M. Burrell in the Megathron Navy issue. Now, with dual rapid heavy ships, it's not going to be very easy to actually break through the tank of heavy armor battleships. But as I say that, they're actually bursting through this armor quite effectively. This Megathron Navy issue. Remember, he doesn't have a rep bonus like the Dami Navy does, so they've got him all the way down into structure. I'm really surprised actually at how fast they were able to take down that armor with the dual rapid heavy setup.
I'll tell you what, he doesn't have any armor remaining, but what he does have is a pile of structure hit points. The way that bar is dropping, I have to assume that it's a structure tanked Megathron Navy issue.
Oh my god. And that would explain the T1 Logi as well. Yeah, this structure, it's an interesting bait. We don't typically see hull tank ships all that often in AT as the Thalia goes down from Yeet, Pray, Love. Chadwick actually now in a lot of trouble, 14% armor remaining. Yeet, Pray, Love last year's nanofiber tokens were known to up tank their Armageddon Navy issues for setups like this. But right now, these rapid heavies, they've realized you're not actually going to be able to clip anything. And now Chadwick, he's all the way into structure. This actually could be CAStabouts winning in a major Twitch chat upset if Chadwick goes down and they're not able to trade back onto this Mega Navy.
This is a devastating turn of events for Yeet, Pray, Love. They were really hoping that Megathron was armor tanked. It's not the case. He has got an absolutely massive structure buffer, which is a feature of Galenti ships. They naturally have a lot of structure hit points. They can be fit such a way that explodes that hit points tremendously. As now Yeet, Pray, Love is dropping rapidly. Their lower end is absolutely melting now that they've lost their logistics frigates. A Heretic about to go down for 10 arrest. Meanwhile, Jay still hanging in there at like 20% structure. This Megathron Navy is tanking to win here.
Well, RIP my 190,000 channel points, by the way. I should not have gone all in here. But either way, I mean, CAStabouts really making a great showing of it. Jay Umbrell will go down, but they still have significantly more attack bar compared to the side of Yeet, Pray, Love. Now, Yeet, Pray, Love still has bonus newts on the Armageddon Navy issue. Might be able to turn off the guns of one of these ships. But, I mean, look at this attack bar. It's almost twice the size for CAStabouts right now. And right now the points say 38 to 37, but that's not telling the whole story. This EOS right now in 19% armor remaining, doesn't have any logistics frigates to keep them up. They are the Wolfpack, I should say, from Yeet, Pray, Love, going on the low end of CAStabouts right now. They're taking down this Federation Navy Comet pretty effectively. They might be able to take down the smallest Navy issue. And now the Rapid Heavies seem to be split, or seem to be going on to this Domi Navy issue of Red House, but it also looks pretty hull tanked right now.
Yeah, the most demoralizing feature about this match for Yeet, Pray, Love right now is realizing that both the Dominic's Navy and Megathron Navy are almost certainly fit the same way as their EOS drops. This Armageddon Navy issue and Vexor Navy issue now the sole sources of DPS on the Yeet, Pray, Love team, and the Vexor is now drawing the lion's share of fire. As soon as that Heretic goes down, looks like he may be up next. The Arbitrator does have a drone damage bonus, but it's not probably fit up to do a ton of damage. And even if it was, it's paltry compared to the hit point bars of the Dami Navy and the Megathron Navy. The CAStabouts defense bar is still off the scale with half of their team dead.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal right now for Yeet, Pray, Love, especially because they have rapid heavies that can't really clip through the Dominic's Navy issue. This is one of the things with an Armageddon Navy. If you have the option to go lasers or rapid heavies, we typically see rapid heavies from a lot of different teams because they're very good at killing specific ships on the enemy team, typically battlecruiser and down. But as we see here, when you're trying to get a single rapid heavy ship versus a battleship that's hull tanked, it really hurts to have those rapid heavy reloads on the team. Siobhan, meanwhile, is Vexor Navy issue about to go down. Same thing with the pawn effects of Tyson. I will point out this Vexor Navy issue, contrary to what I think we see a lot of in the AT, with full rack of newts on it, I do believe actually has guns. So let me just double check the model again. Nope. I think he might actually be full newt. Either way, still going down pretty effectively. I mean, just look at the puny attack bar now. They still have a pretty strong control bar. I will say maybe they can get some newts out, but with only this Armageddon Navy issue available and this arbitrator doing tracking disruption, it doesn't look like it will be enough for them. And CAStabouts pulling off a pretty big upset here up against Yeet, Pray, Love, who are now out in 2.
This is a massive, massive upset. You heard it on the analyst desk before the match started. You saw it in the channel point prediction ratio here in Stream Chat. Everyone thought Yeet, Pray, Love, which is a rather elite small gang alliance, would take this well in hand against CAStabouts, who are a pretty solid but traditionally not terribly successful tournament team. But here we have CAStabouts out theory crafting the small gang alliance and absolutely breaking them with just a sheer weight of their hit point bar, just falling on top of them with an absolute unit amount of structure hit points.
Yeah, massive attack bar, massive defense bar, not able to really utilize that control, I would say, from Yeet, Pray, Love side. Last year, they placed top betas nanofiber tokens. This year, they're not able to do that. They're not even going to make it in a main tournament, which... a bit of a surprise. I think most people expected Yeet, Pray, Love to make it in, especially, channel point predictions before their match against Plug and Play. I think a lot of people expected them to make it in. So quite a bit of an upset, but quite a bit of a tournament disappointment for Yeet, Pray, Love. But we'll see them next year. We'll see how they go. Meanwhile, CAStabouts, well done to them. For those who don't know who CAStabouts is, they are basically a alliance built out of the Rookie Corp Center for Advanced Studies as a way to get new players into doing other things into the game. They're kind of the only corp like them in EVE Online, and something that we've seen a lot of from them in the past is we've seen them have tournament teams that haven't necessarily gone super well in feeders, but they've actually maintained a lot of their pilots from last year, which is a bit surprising considering how high turnover that corp typically is. So I like seeing this from them, and I wish them luck in their next match versus Hisec Miners.
That should be a very thrilling match. This match just wrapping up now. We've got about 50 to 45 seconds left. This Dominic's Navy is still hanging in there with about 10% structure remaining, as the Geddon Navy of Icer XX is now dipping into 1/3 armor, unlike the Galenti battleships. Amar not known for their structure tanking, as that it may have some local reps, but it's not going to be enough against the sheer amount of damage coming off the Hurricane Fleet, Dami Navy, and Mega Navy. Even if this Dami goes down, it is likely that Geddon may even drop before this match expires here, as we're coming close to time.
Yeah, he hit his rapid heavy reload, was able to take down the Dami Navy. Just a bit of a moral victory, but really nice hull tank bank from CAStabouts. This is the kind of theory crafting that you occasionally see in feeders, where you bring something a little bit weird, something you typically don't associate with the AT, and then you see sometimes it works because people aren't expecting it, or they might be underestimating your team, which I think might be the case in this particular match. So really well played to CAStabouts. The match is over. We're going to send it back to the desk, and when we return, we will have a new match with a new set of commentators.
Pew, 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 pew. Pew, pew, pew.
mark could be anywhere.
And with that, Yeet, Pray, Love has been yeeted out of the feeders, and quite unfortunate for them, but also quite unfortunate for that massive channel point upset. Believe we were talking about it beforehand. We saw it was 85% chance that CAStabouts lost there, and they didn't. So I think we're going to actually segue a little bit here, because we were going to talk about channel points, and now we get to talk about a massive channel point upset. So CCP overload. As somebody with the letter CCP in front of your name, and we are on the CCP channel, therefore you must know everything about everything that goes on here. Tell us about channel points.
Okay, so channel points. They're awesome. You earn channel points simply by watching streams on the CCP Twitch channel. It doesn't have to be just the feeders. It can be anything that's streamed on the CCP Twitch channel. And you see how many channel points you've got just underneath your text box in the chat window. Occasionally that even pops up and lets you click and get a little extra bonus 50. And you can trade those in for pretty cool prizes. Usually it's the Galnet Streamcast skins, which are awesome. So in order to do that, you need to connect your Twitch account to your Eve account with our bot, the Eve to Twitch bot, and you do that simply by typing !IGN followed by your Eve character name in Twitch chat. That bot will do that, and then once you've accumulated around 10,000 channel points and you claim one of these skins, it'll be sent to you in game as a mail in the inbox of the character you registered with the Eve to Twitch bot. So you get a mail with the code, and that's how you get your skin. During tournaments like this, you can actually wager those channel points, as we saw in that last match, on the outcome of matches. And if you correctly predict the winner, then all the points wagered by the losing side get distributed to the winning side. Sometimes we do raffles as well, and skins for those raffles can be different. They can be Galnet ones as well, so you can keep up with that. And if you lost all your Twitch channel points in that last match, you can type !refund and get them back. So
I don't know if that last part is completely true here, but hey, what do I know, right? I'm not a CCP guy.
We'll wait and see how many people type !refund.
We'll see. I see one. Yeah. Oh, I see some.
That part was not true.
There you go.
Those are in the bin. You're not getting them back.
Yep. But hey, that's okay, because there are many, many more matches to continue to try and make back all of your points. And who knows, maybe you'll get lucky, bet on an upset, and get several thousand points, like some of us did. All that being said, let's talk about that match, because that was actually a really fantastic match to start off the day with. And Misty, you had a bunch of notes on that match, so we'll throw it over to you real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the two things that I want to take away from that match is actually focusing on the lower end of the comp, so looking at the frigate and the destroyer play. There was a lot happening in the match, so I'll leave some things for Ithaca to talk about, or CCP Overload to talk about. Mazik, I believe, in the Thalia, did an amazing job of keeping the Sentinel alive towards the beginning of the match. There were a swarm of light drones around the Sentinel, and he did a really effective job of splitting his reps between the Geddon Navy and the Sentinel, so that he was able to keep the Sentinel up while also making sure that the Geddon Navy was remaining alive while they killed the EOS, I believe it was. Unfortunately, the Sentinel still eventually died, but I thought that was a really good way of using a logistics frigate, because you have to manage your range from the targets that you want to rep. I think the optimal for an armor rep is about 13 kilometers, so it's by no means easy to position. So I think that was great. And the other thing that I saw was, I believe, Nazgath in the Federation Navy Comet running around and actually hunting these logistics frigates, using that light swarm that was on the Sentinel to actually do enough damage to the logistics frigates to break through the reps that would be coming in, and then clearing those off the grid. So I think that was excellent offensive play. But then I also want to point out, and this is a bit of a learning lesson, Tyson in the Pontifex towards the end of that match was sitting right next to a Mega Navy and a Dominic's Navy. Not the best place to be, if you're in a destroyer that has all of the links that your team needs to remain alive. I would recommend, in the case where you have no more logistics available, when your team is trying to pull away to minimize the amount of damage they're taking, because you have the range control advantage against blaster boats, you probably want to be following your team out so that you're not just staying behind and dying, because those links are super important later on in those matches.
All right. Well, do you have anything to add with that, CCP Overload?
Muted, muterator.
No.
Oh, I've been
Mutator
muterated.
strikes.
We knew someone was going to get struck, and this time it was me. It was a super interesting match. It looked like at the start we saw Yeet, Pray Love doing pretty good screening. It looked like they were in a good position, and then it all just sort of started to fall apart. One interesting little tidbit that I'd like to share with you guys is I've been delving recently through all the code for the tournament tool and things like the UI and stuff, and armor, shield, and hull hit points, which are displayed in the UI. Hull is actually tracked in the tool officially as honor points. Like whoever coded it together put them in as honor points. So it's literally, according to the Alliance Tournament tool, honor tanking. That's what we just saw there.
Excellent. Well, they did do a fantastic job honor tanking. It is always fun watching a hull tanked setup win. Perhaps there were some things that CAStabouts could have done a little better. Perhaps there's some things that Yeet, Pray, Love could have done better, like winning. But at the end of the day, one of the teams has moved on, one of the teams has not, and we will be moving on to another match in just a little bit, actually. So we're going to be having Test Alliance Please Ignore versus Whole Control. Both of these teams have been performing relatively decently. I think maybe Whole Control performed a little worse than would be expected just because they are in an elimination match. Misty, how do you feel about these teams?
I mean, just going into this next match, I have to assume that Twitch chat is going to take the side of Whole Control to be the favorites. I think that Whole Control setup that they brought last time was fairly okay. I think it was heavy rush with a lot of Caldari ships. I can't remember if they were kiting or rushing. I can see their comp. It was like 2 Navy Drakes, another Drake, another Cyclone, 2 Navy Caracals. So I'm leaning towards rush, which is a lot of damage and it's really easy to execute. With the test side, I believe they brought the standard like 3 battleships that we're typically seeing at the moment, which I think they would probably suffer quite drastically against a rush comp. But I'm hoping that Test has something in the bag and they have 10 pilots today, because it seems like the additional pilot that they found really is the recipe for winning their matches.
Absolutely. And real quick, we'll look at the bans here. Test banned the Carries, the Caracal Navy issue, and Whole Control banned the Scimitar and the Loki. Scimitar's pretty powerful ships, Loki's being one of the key members of that rush that we really like to see here. But the teams are actually on grid right now, so we will talk more about these guys after the match is complete, and we can say, haha, we were right, even though we didn't actually say anything beforehand. So we are just going to go straight to the arena with Jintan and Wingnut as our caster commentary pair.
Hello everyone and welcome to sunny 6Q5K-5. I'm joined with Wingnut and we're about to watch Test Alliance Please Ignore go up against Whole Control. And we see Whole Control here having brought a very, very high DPS comp, relying on 2 Abaddons and 2 Executor and Navy issues, and then a whole suite of support to try and lock down their opponents to be able to apply that. What have Test Alliance Please Ignore brought here?
Well, they bought twin rapid heavy Armageddon navies with a Hyperion for extra damage, as well as a lot of low-end control as well. Hyena and Morse is going to be a very potent combo. But there is a Nurgle and a Vedmak on the other side, who I suspect are going to have a very fun time just chewing these small ships alive as the match comes underway.
Yeah, I think what this match is really going to come down to is how well Test's tackle can get through that incredibly, that kind of back line of the Nurgle, the Vedmak, the Magus, the things that are going to try and slow them down. If they can get all of that DPS from their top end into position onto any of those cruisers, they are going to evaporate, even under Guardian Rex.
I will say that just looking at the outset here, the comp they're going against is actually almost a perfect counter to them in some ways. Abaddon's backed by a Guardian with rapid heavies and a Hyperion is going to be pain. You see the Hyena already going straight through shields into armor. Luckily they've got their Logi Frigs, but if that goes down, immediately you lose a lot of help that these ships really need for the rapid heavies.
Yeah, Whole Control here is really just trying to leverage the great tracking that they have from those 3 cruisers, the Exec Navies and the Vedmak, which will allow them to apply really effectively to those small ships. But you can see, they only have so much time to work with here. DPS is already going on that ENI, and the Hyena might be going into half armor here. But even if it dies at this point, it's done its job. These battleships are getting into position. They're about to start unloading DPS. You can see that red bar for Test Alliance, please ignore, creeping up and up, taking over where Whole Controls is. If this turns into a race, it's not going to be good for Whole Control.
Yeah, at the moment, Rapid Heavy is going on to the Executive Navy, I believe. The Hyperion was about to tackle the Abaddon, but actually backed off, which, in my opinion, is a very smart call. That is the last thing you want to try and take down with your comp, with the Guardian still on grid. Seeing now damage getting spread to the Magus as well, so both teams just trying to find an opening. The problem, of course, being that Test are firing Rapid Heavies. They can't really make the mistake of firing something, then reload. It takes them like a minute to fix that problem.
Oh, look at that Sapporo Trones. He's been caught sleeping, sitting at 0 MS. A bunch of battleships just turning on him and destroying his armor. Oh my god, those Thalias and Deacons are going to have to burn across the arena to keep him up as well.
Random note as well, they have no way to kill these light drones on their support wing, as far as I can see. And there's just like 2 or 3 flights of light drones just constantly harassing the support wing of Test. At the moment, one of them, the Magus, is actually going into half armor. And look at the Nurgle. Oof.
Yeah, I think he's just hit his ADC, so he's going to be fine. The Guardian's going to be able to rep him back up, but that amount of DPS isn't something he can sustain. That Nurgle needs to move out of the position he's in, and I don't think he's able to. Yeah, oh no, this is going to be bad. As soon as that ADC runs out, he is going to get burst through, and that's going to be the first domino to fall potentially here for Whole Control. Meanwhile, it's Test Alliance Hyena in low armor too.
Oh, this is not looking good. That Nurgle's living to win right now. The Hyperion's being shot as well. The Hyena is in low armor. This is just holding on for dear life by Test. They can, even the Vedmak, they're just going everywhere. There's damage going across every ship on the field at this point. It's getting ridiculous. Just pick something, please.
I think both teams are just sort of sorting by transversal, trying to hit the targets they can do the most damage they possibly can to. You can see, though, that Whole Control...
hard caught. He's
Oh,
gone.
no.
Screwed. 2
That's
Ged Navies
brutal.
with those on top and a Hyperion at point blank as well. That Vedmak is going to be gone very soon. That's going to be the first thing shifting towards Test. They might be able to pull this through, even against a comp that looks very painful to fight.
What do you think about this Whole Control strategy, though, of putting a lot of their battleship DPS onto that Hyperion, trying to test his tank, burn through those Ansil rep charges? Do you think they're going for sort of a late game play here?
I don't know. The Hyperion, I don't know why they're going for that one. That's probably the one ship that's...
The Guardian's been tackled! The Guardian's been tackled by the Order Navy issue.
Why is he there? Hold on, why is the Guardian there? Okay, Deacon goes down too, so Logitray is starting, but why was the Guardian there? He was like... He's right next to the Hyperion now. And honestly, he wasn't that far away to begin with. Okay, well, looks like that Guardian's about to die very quickly. At this point, that's going to be Test probably getting ahead with this. Those Abaddons are going to be impossible to break with Guardian reps, but with the Guardian gone, they're just big balls of EHP. You can break through that.
Yeah, that logistics trade is very, very much not in the favor of Whole Control. Test Alliance, please ignore. You can see that rep bar is just a little bit bigger for them because that Hyperion is going to be able to sustain DPS into the late game. That said, neither side has logistics now. They need to take, if Whole Control are to win this match, they need to use those ENI's application, take out all of these frigates, coast until the boosts wear off, and then go in for the kill.
Yeah, and this is the one thing about the Hyperion. It will be able to outlast a lot of ships just off of one repper alone. And with the nuke pressure from the Armageddon Navies constantly pressuring these Abaddons, they'll lose DPS here and there, which will buy the Hyperion time to get back up to full armor and save capacity. Meanwhile, the Hyena in the background just getting obliterated. So there's still 2 Exec Navies pulling out good DPS, but it's just a little too late, maybe.
I don't know. There's still potential in here. That Abaddon, it's only got a quarter of its armor left, but that's a lot of EHP. If they can take the DPS of this Hyperion on the off the grid and maybe run into those RMHL reloads, the consistent DPS of those lasers still has the potential to take this match here for Whole Control. That said, Test Alliance, please ignore. They just need to find a kill.
The one thing there as well that actually gave them that kill on the Hyperion, they have a full Newt Mauler who was just sitting there newting the living hell out of that Hyperion. Now he's going into the Armageddon Navies. But that Mauler would have been painfully annoying to that Hyperion, which of course does go down. The Abaddon now in hull as well, as the second Armageddon Navy is going through armor.
But look at how much bigger that Whole Control attack bar is consistently. They're just pumping out a little more damage here than Test Alliance, please ignore, and it's outweighing that rep advantage they had at the start of this game.
This is actually looking really bad for Test now at the moment, because I thought it was getting Navies be more tanky, but they're really not. 2 Abaddons plus 2 Exec Navies are just really ripping through them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see that the Whole Control taking advantage of the fact that they have more players as well. You can see all of their tackle are spread across all of the hostile ships, just keeping them in position, stopping them from putting any little bit of extra pressure they can on these Abaddons, on this Exec Navy issue, just keeping it alive for as long as humanly possible. That said, the Abaddon finally does go down there.
And the Augury Navy is actually soloing off one of the Exec Navies as well. So that's going to be one of these extra DPS cruisers gone. But the Maulus goes down. The Armageddon Navy's about to go down. The Executor Navy's about to go down. That leaves an Armageddon and an Augury Navy versus an Abaddon Executor Navy, Mauler, and then two...
wow, down in the same tick.
This was looking so much for Test, including that throw from the Guardian, but they're clawing this back. This Abaddon's going to be a nightmare to kill. And then with the Nuke Mauler backing it up as well to even remove the nuke pressure from the Armageddon Navy, this can still go either way. This is ridiculous.
Absolutely, but I think that Whole Control now, the advantage is in their direction. They have all the ships that they need to win this fight. It's just a matter of not screwing it up and not letting all these ships get away. You know, if this Augury Navy issue, if he can catch one of this Exec Navy issue, it might still be in the fight for them.
To Evil 1 and the Ponty just dropped the cap boosters for the Abaddon. I just saw that drive-by cap drop. That is well done as well. Knowing that the Abaddon needs the capacity to survive against this Armageddon Navy, he's going to be neuting the hell out of it. Meanwhile, the Mauler is just sitting on the Armageddon Navy and constantly just sucking his capacity dry. This is perfectly executed now at this point, except for the Guardian killing itself. This is actually doing very, very well.
Yeah, the route for Test Alliance, please ignore back into this match. They just need to kill something and then survive. If they can live for the rest of this match, there's only about 2 minutes 30 on the clock. They will have the points advantage if they manage to take something out here. Name loading, unfortunately, probably isn't going to be able to get out of his situation though, and I don't think he's going to live that long. Oh no! Look at the amount of damage.
Look at the other Org Navy of Kiramati, and he is a billion miles away, pushing off the Exec Navy. I guess he's not even close to the Exec Navy, nor is he close to the fight. He's just in no man's land. I'm not exactly sure what he's doing there. Yeah, he's now decided, no, time to come back. Too late though. Too late.
Yeah, finally getting a rep off there is name loading, but with 2 minutes left on the clock and him in structure, I think this is game. Once the Armageddon Navy issue goes down, it's just going to be cleanup for Whole Control. But what a match! You really have to give it up to Whole Control for having the mental resilience to stay in this match after their Guardian got caught by Test.
Exactly. It was looking like that was going to be the absolute death blow, but these Abaddons are always a pain to kill, especially when they're backed up by a Nuke Mauler, which pretty much negates the nuke pressure against them as well. And yeah, the Armageddon Navy goes down. The Abaddon at this point, his resist from the reactor was pretty much making the Armageddon Navy worthless as well. Well done by Whole Control. This is a beautiful comeback. I just don't know exactly what Kiramati is doing, but it doesn't really matter anymore, does it?
Yeah, and of course, let's not forget to give our flowers to Test, because they performed excellently in this match. They were some people were not particularly kind to them last weekend after only showing up with 9 players, but now they've turned up with 10, and they took Whole Control to the very edge in this match. In fact, we thought that they had won it at one point here. It's a shame, and we hope to see them next year, really. They have outperformed our expectations.
Exactly that. I mean, there's a lot of moments in this fight that Test flew pretty damn well. Stuff like the Hyperion not just death charging an Abaddon, but trying to get something better. Get the ships they went after, the targets they picked, and how they went through them. Very, very well flown. Thank you so much to Test, and congratulations to Hull. We'll go back to the studio and see what they think.
Guys, stop being casual. They're really bad. We should not lose anybody to this. Warp off. Take the fleet warp. Everybody warp off. This is really, really bad execution. I'm very disappointed.
Another great haul back from Amar. Damn, I'm thirsty. Ah, that hits the spot.
Yeah, we actually lost a bet as CCP collectively, so that's why that Alliance logo is in the game. Of course, you could change your alliance by leaving, but that would be kind of a jerk move. Like, oh, you don't like it? Just leave.
This logo sucks. I'm gonna go join.
Whole Control has managed to keep Mark Resurrectus's dreams of actually seeing a wormholer make it to the actual Alliance tournament. That was another fantastic match. We're like 2 for 2 already today. CCP Overload, what happened there?
Well, what happened was one team, in fact, killed more ships than the other team, thus allowing them to win the match and move on. What happened in more detail is a very good match that went back and forward, back and forward. When Whole Control, the Guardian, unpositioned himself into a bad spot and basically fed his Guardian really quickly, I thought it was going to swing hard over to Test, and it started to swing. But I think Jin called it during the match. Well done to Whole Control for being able to essentially switch strategies and adapt to things, because when stuff starts to go wrong, when your plan doesn't work, then it could be very easy to just spiral into a pit of despair and lose the match. But they were able to actually turn it around. And we saw at the start they were doing a really good job keeping away from the Test side, kiting around, sort of trying to force them to try and position better and then strike in when the moment hit. I think you mentioned it, Bart, in the back channels about the rapid heavy clips. Test basically were forced to hold on to their clips for quite a while until they could get themselves in a good position. Meanwhile, Whole Control just applying damage that whole time, which gave them a bit of a lasting advantage.
It's true. That is the second time today. We have only had 2 matches, so perhaps 100% of the matches where we have had somebody bring a rapid heavy Armageddon Navy issue. Mystical Might, opinions on the rapid heavy Armageddon Navy issue?
I mean, I know your opinion on the rapid heavy Armageddon Navy issue. So Bart professes that both matches would have been won by the Armageddon Navy issue team if they just brought guns. And I can see the logic behind it to a degree. With the rapid heavies, they're really effective at doing burst damage and applying to some of the smaller targets, perhaps, if you have webs and target painters, which Hyena provides. But they're not as effective at sustaining damage over long periods of time. So you won't be able to constantly pressure the enemy team by chipping away at their lower ends like we saw the Abandons were able to do, because when Tests accidentally turned their Magus a little bit too steeply and approached the Abandons, it got shot and then put into low armor and it had to turn away again. Same with the Hyena, same with the Pontifex. You don't see that really with rapid heavies, because every single time you use one, that's one less that you can use before you need to basically spend, I think, 25, 35 seconds reloading, which is 35 seconds that you're not doing damage. So yeah, I think they have their place. It just depends on the team that you build them around. Nice cat. I would say that the other ship I wanted to talk about was the Nurgle in this case, because we saw that the Nurgle went and hunted down the Deacon and the Thali on the Test side. I think Nurgles are extremely costly but very important and useful ships if used well. If you're able to push your Nurgle into the backline and get them on top of the logistics frigates, or perhaps even some of the cruisers, eventually over time they spool up to do like a battleship's worth of damage. I think they do a lot of damage after a couple minutes of shooting, and they'll be able to effectively clear the lower end by themselves if they're kept alive. So really interesting use of the Nurgle today.
Yeah, you said that it was a lot of points, but it was probably worth it in this case. Obviously, if you are newer to the tournament scene, all of these ships have a associated point cost. This is to make sure that you don't bring 10 battleships and just clean the grid by having all of the best ships in the game. The point costs and the rules are they're all up on the General Alliance Tournament rules, but the easy way to look at it is higher tech ship, bigger point, bigger ship, bigger point, big high tech ship, large point. So succinctly wrapping that up for you guys. Other than that, yeah, we saw that the positioning on the Guardian was a little silly. We don't know if that was necessarily that it got damped in or maybe it panicked. Guardian reps are actually quite long range, so it is entirely possible that it could have just been the accidental double click in space. I believe anyone who has played EVE knows that every once in a while, sometimes you get too excited, click twice on your screen, and fly in a direction you did not mean to go. Other than that, though, very, very good match. Whole Control will be moving on to one more match to see if they can make it in. Unfortunately, Test Alliance will not be making it in to the actual tournament. We do have another match coming up, though, which is the Bright Side of Death team, a very long and interesting pedigreed team versus Sons of Bane. CCP Overload, let's... You probably know a lot about Bright Side of Death. Do you know anything about Sons of Bane here?
Not off the top of my head. To be perfectly fair, I could tell you a bit about Brightside though. I know that they have a couple of the experienced pilots from the Vidra Reloaded team, multiple Alliance Tournament winning team, and Darkside themselves, captained usually by Faffy Waffy, in their own right a very good experienced team. So they've kind of sucked up some of the more experienced pilots from Vidra.
Yes, absolutely. And they are known. So if you've been watching the tournament scene, Vidra has not been playing as Vidra for a couple of years now. But Bright Side of Death has some of their main theory crafters, and they've been known for doing very interesting things that most of the time work. So kind of expecting probably something cool here. Misty, do you have any ideas what Bright Side might bring?
I mean, I'm just thinking back, like the typical comps that Vidra would bring. We're either going to see some control, which is typically something that we see reserved for the final weekend of an Alliance tournament because you don't want to give away the tricks that you have up your sleeve too soon. Otherwise, we'll probably see something like Octodad, which is just going to be a lot of long-range battle cruisers and cruisers with medium weapon systems, typically guns, that can apply really well to the lower end of any comp, and they do enough damage that you can really punch through reps of battleships and battle cruisers if you need to. I'm expecting something along those lines, to be honest.
Well, we are seeing really interesting bans here. I believe we're seeing several ships we haven't seen banned before. Sons of Bane has banned the Bargus, which we've seen banned many times, but they also banned the Stormbringer. And Bright Side of Death has banned the Sentinel and the Crucifier, so both disruption frigates. CCP Overload, what does this mean?
It means that they're just like, hey, see that disruption? GTFO. Like, we do not want any of that here. Both of those ships, as you say, bonused to guidance and tracking disruption. It's interesting that they chose to ban both of those rather than, say, also the Curse. And the other good thing about the Sentinel is, of course, it's a really good pocket nuke boat. If you park one of them on top of an enemy logistics cruiser, you can kind of shut it down. It's obviously much more mobile than something like a Curse and less points. But even still, the Curse has been a super popular ban compared to banning both of those ships at the same time, which is a bit of a strange one.
Absolutely. And Mystical Might, the Stormbringer. This is the first time we've seen it banned. Why?
So, the Stormbringer itself is actually a fairly tanky ship. It's really annoying to try and kill. I think it can get like 100k HP if you fully buffer tank it, at least on TQ. In the tournament setting, it serves as a really good way of removing rep bots at a long range. And it's also probably going to be good against like a Sentry Swarm too, since those drones are immobile. What the Stormbringer brings to the field is an arc photon projector, which fires like a beam at its intended target, and then that beam will bounce to the next like 9 or 10 people around it, doing damage in a 10-kilometer area. It only hits up to, I think, 10 people. So it can't hit hundreds of people at once, but it still does a lot of spread damage over time. And that's why it's really effective at clearing off rep bots, because you just shoot the target that you want to clear the rep bots off, and eventually those drones die. Typically, the Skybreaker is better than the Stormbringer just due to the smaller weapon system, meaning better application. So I'm not quite sure why they banned the Stormbringer in this case, but it suggests that they might want to have a more immobile, rep-heavy comp versus perhaps a more projected comp that the Sentinel and Crucifier bans would suggest.
Excellent. Well, it will not be in this thing, so we will see if you were correct, because the teams have actually both landed on the field, and they are getting ready to smash their spaceships into each other and explodify all over each other's faces. So we are going to be sending it to the commentary pair. Once again, we have Alec and Fear, and we will take a look and see what's about to happen here.
Hello and welcome to this absolutely thrilling match, Bright Side of Death versus Sons of Bane. As expected, both teams came to play. It's Bright Side of Death running a modified Octodad setup with Stardate, Absolution, Hard Navy, Brutix Navy, and a pair of Executor Navies for damage. Fear, what do we have on Sons of Bane?
Well, they brought armor control with a Balgorn and Fleet Tempest. Interesting to see the Fleet Tempest in the tournament this year, as it's not discounted points like it was last year. I'm checking the guns right now. I would assume this is going to be autocannons, just due to the nature of, yeah, those are autocannons. They are looks to be dual 650s actually, but I might be wrong on that one. It might be 800s.
And Regicide
either
is
way.
about to get decapitated here as his maul is taking a ton of fire on the Sons of Bane side. It looks like Bright Side of Death definitely has the edge in projection so far, as they are imposing their will in the battlefield early, while Sons of Bane is rushing forward trying to get into range.
Yep. Also to note, Sons of Bane, they do have guns on their bow, so it's not a full newt bow. Does make sense. They also have an Oracle for DPS. So their attack bar actually is similar sized to what has been brought from the side of Bright Side of Death. But as you mentioned, Bright Side of Death, they have the range advantage. They have to be able to kite this out. We see this Nurgle starting to dive in towards the Bright Side of Death blob right now. We'll see if it's going to be able to do anything. It is being taken down into 60% armor remaining. Does not have anything tackled quite yet, as the damping power of this Mollis has been pretty well utilized by the sides of Son of Bane, but at the same time, Mollis and carries from Bright Side of Death have won this damp war pretty effectively. They've got 4 damps right now out on the Sons of Bane side. This Nurgle, though, is living to win right now through the ADC, and they've swapped onto the Oracle. MJD play happening.
It was
oh
an excellent
man, the Balgorn
feint.
just got right on top. A Bright Side of Death, but Shadowguard and the Oracle, he's being taken down very quickly. We'll see if this Balgorn's able to lock anything down with its webs. Actually, as I said, that Bright Side of Death counter MJD'd onto the other side of the fight, so excuse me on that one, I may have miscommentated it. Either way, the Oracle goes down, and Bright Side of Death, they've still got the range advantage, but importantly, they are right on top of this logistics and the Arneros.
The battlefield is now split into 2 distinct fights. You've got the Balgorn currently going after, what is that? It's surrounded by a cloud of drones, the Harb Navy issue of Midas Bartholomew. Meanwhile, the Sons of Bane Aneros is getting pinned down and killed. That is a far better trade for Bright Side of Death. Oh, and it goes down. That is a huge, huge loss for Sons of Bane. Meanwhile, the Bright Side Augur, he's perfectly fine. There's nothing anywhere close to him.
No, I mean, it's a really interesting to see a double MJD play happen. Not typically something we see, but this time they both caught a single target from either side. Ginger Ale now going down in this Nurgle. He doesn't have the ADC available to him. He falls at the same time as that Navy Harbinger, so it ended up being a 3-for-1 trade in favor of Bright Side of Death. They're on the Mollis now of Regicide, and they're just going to continue snowballing this match with their range advantage, with their attack bar now being quite a bit not quite girthier, but still much more active than what we're seeing from Sons of Bane.
Yeah, Sons of Bane had an excellent start. The Nurgle flying in to fake it out as they just lose their Magus. They faked out a lot of aggro, brought it back, healed it up. Meanwhile, the Mauler was able to get in and land tackle. But this micro jump play seems to have thrown them off, and they just have not been able to recover. There are getting some kills. The Absolution from Bright Side of Death went down, but the tempo of this match is so far out of their favor now. It's very difficult to see a way for Sons of Bane to come back into this. If their Balgorn, ironically, was full newt fit, they would actually stand a better chance, as literally all of the damage on Bright Side of Death's team relies on Capacitor. But that pre-game decision may be costing them here in the late stretches of this match.
And now you're seeing Bright Side of Death's attack bar really getting to work. It is absolutely massive. The defense bar keeps on shrinking from the side of Sons of Bane. Grant you, they have some active reps. That's what the purple part of the defense bar represents. So they should be able to hold on for a little bit longer. But this Balgorn absolutely getting wrecked right now by Bright Side of Death, and they're maintaining their ranges perfectly. They are going to lose their Mauler potentially, who's been running screen for them, but that's a worthwhile trade. Their Absolution also too far forward did get caught. He's in the structure, but he'll go down at the same time as the Balgorn, and Bright Side of Death are running away with this match.
Yeah, the Tempest Fleet issue, a somewhat curious choice for a faction battleship. It's not as good as some of the alternatives that you could bring, and it definitely doesn't have the solo carry power to be able to outlast against an Astarte Brutix Navy with a pair of Executors for DPS. Best case scenario, your Executor Navy is rail fit, which does seem to be what these guys are here. So the tracking is not going to be great. But unfortunately, the Tempest Fleet issue is big as a barn. It's not going to be able to avoid any of that damage.
And importantly, he's not able to kill this Absolution now. He's holding under AUG reps. Typically, when we see T1 Logi, and Armor Logi, it is the Augur, just because it has the extra tank and a bit more repping power than you see out of the Executor. And we're seeing that being used quite effectively on this Absolution right now. The Tempest Fleet issue, just unable to take down this Absolution, despite the fact that he's webbed and scrammed and being neuted and nosed right now. Meanwhile, Varric in the Exec Navy absolutely gets deleted, and it's just his Tempest Fleet and the Mauler versus the world. Once again, really well played to Bright Side of Death. They will move on to the main tournament. Sons of Bane are going to go down to the losers bracket and going to try to make a run to the main tournament that way.
Wouldn't count them out just yet. They are a very solid alliance with a good PvP pedigree, but didn't really get the chance to show it here. Again, the opening for them looked really, really strong, and then it just kind of got away from them. You see the experience of the Bright Side of Death team coming into play as they finally bring down that Fleet Tempest, and with it, all hope Sons of Bane have of maintaining any presence in the winners bracket. This Mauler, while tanky, is going to drop extremely rapidly. The experience of Bright Side of Death coming into play here as they were able to take that unusual double micro jump situation and just react more calmly, make the correct decisions, reprioritize, and it takes them into the next round as we throw this back to the desk.
Connected. Channel switched.
Well, it would have been a f***ing easy fight, right? But guess what, dude? I'm not seeing and people can't get their f***ing together!
Crash our enemies.
Your dams are completely damped out.
Crash.
I'm damped out,
Get on that campus, boys.
Heat your reps.
Yeah.
Everything down.
I've not been able to look at a single thing all game.
I'm jammed.
I feel like we're now 3 for 3. These have all been wonderful matches. We saw a absolutely fantastic double MJD play there. And just real quick, Mystical Might, MJDs. Obviously, we kind of know how they work, but can we explain how they work in the arena sense?
Sure, yes. So you have two different types of MJDs in the arena. You're going to have the local MJDs that battleships and battlecruisers can fit, which will carry them 100 kilometers in their chosen direction and can be prevented with scrams. And you'll also have mobile MJD beacons around the edges of the arena and one in the middle. The ones around the edges are all 100 kilometers apart. So if you're going from the top left beacon to the top right beacon, you can continue jumping around the arena. You can also jump down to the same arena on that side, but you can't go diagonally, of course. So teams make effective use of them by burning to the MJD beacon at the furthest edge and then MJDing back in, as we saw with the BSOD, to jump into the back lines of teams that they might not want to necessarily try and brawl through. And that allows them to get on top of those weaker ships and melt through them.
And that is exactly what we saw happen. And also, I have noticed that CCP Overload has been replaced with Dujek. Dujek, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. I'm happy to finally be here. I'm looking forward to doing some desk stuff. I loved the match as well. It was good entertainment, although I'm haunted in my nightmares from practice sessions of thinking that I have the range under control of the enemy team and having them MJD past me and killing my backline.
Yes, that was a fantastic play from BSOD. Actually, Bane did a pretty good job. They did MJD into them. Like the Balgorn MJDing in was reminiscent of I think it's Reifeson doing insane Balgorn plays, but BSOD did a fantastic job countering that. One thing that we saw was BSOD actually kiting away right off the bat and applying quite a bit of damage. And I kind of want to pull up the tracking graph, the tracking animation real quick. And Dujek, can you kind of explain this forward for the audience here?
Tracking is measured in something called radial velocity against your targets. So that means that the further they are away from you, the less tracking you need in order to hit them. So as you're going back, and they presumably might be going back as well, it's easier to hit something that is far away from you, given the same speed and gun tracking stats, than it is to hit the same ship close up. So if they're going faster, it would be harder, and if they're closer, it's harder.
Absolutely. You did a perfect explanation with the as the graph went there too. It's like you've seen it before or something. But yes, and I also saw a actual fantastic Twitch chat commentary, because I do read Twitch chat because I love all of you equally. In fact, somebody said tracking isn't real, just control space, and that is actually not incorrect. I believe the famous two-time winner captain of Hydra Reloaded, Dexter Zhao, was very, very good at that. He would ram battleships in, control space, and apply massive DPS. So any battleship pilots out there, just remember, if you hit control space, you track better and do tons and tons of damage. Other than that, Misty, you did a fantastic job predicting what the comp was going to be based off those bans. So we kind of saw what happened there, but I actually want you to talk about ban theory a little bit here. I'll hit you with a little bit of a tough one to explain.
Yeah, okay. So I guess there's different types of ban theory. Really, it depends on your team's play style, because there's so many different ships in EVE Online, you can't ban every single ship. So you need to be thinking about what type of comps you have available to you, and what the ships are that will really throw a spanner in the works of what you're able to achieve, or like would actually break your comp apart. With the tracking comp that we saw here with BSOD, because they have so many ships that rely on long-range projection and tracking, the tracking disruptors that a Crucifier or a Sentinel would be able to bring would actually prevent, 2 or 3 of their ships from being able to effectively reach out and do their damage. And losing that 2 or 3 ships worth of damage may actually mean that they aren't able to break through some of the smaller ships towards the backline. Now, that's kind of negated a bit by the fact that you can just MJD past everything, as we saw, but it's still something that they would need to be concerned about. The same can be said for a comp that perhaps only has 2 Leshaks. You probably also want to be looking at removing some of those tracking disruptors, because again, they're very good at nullifying the damage that you're able to project and do at long ranges. I think it's really hard to have like a single ban theory or way of banning, because if you're going up against a team that you know is basically just a one trick, right? They've only got one comp that they're good with, or they've got a comp that they usually fly, and you're fairly confident that they don't have anything else that they can replace those ships with. If you ban the exec navies, for example, in this Octodad comp that we just saw, there's no effective replacement for those ships because they already receive a point reduction. So then they're scrambling to find something else that is not quite as good to replace those ships with. The same can be said for things like, Blackbirds are hard to replace because I don't think there's any other Tech 1 variant that you could use to effectively use ECM. So there are some certain ships that you can ban that are effective. Osprey navies cannot do the same effective job as the Exec Navy. They are okay, but they do not have the same range or damage profiles that the Exec Navy does. But nice try, Wally. Sorry,
Yeah,
I also read Twitch chat.
Yeah, we all do. Well, some of us do. Ithaca Hawk, also known as CCP Overload, self-admittedly does not know how to read. But yes, I do think I actually got slightly flamed a little bit last AT for saying that all ships are the same. You can't ban anything out. Everything is replaceable. That's not entirely true, but in general, yeah, things get wild, especially later on. But for this, not quite as important. But thinking about bans, so we have another match coming up, which is X877 versus eSports team. I don't want to do their full name. It's in my contract that I don't actually have to. But we do have the bans for these teams. So we have X877 banning the Barghest and the Scimitar, with eSports team banning the Blackbird and the Scimitar. And then we have an initial trickle ban of an Oneros and a Nighthawk. So just going with those bans, Dujek, and it should pop up on the screen relatively shortly here. What are you expecting to see? Like, let's walk through it real quick.
I feel like the Barghest Scimitar and Blackbird Scimitar bans are kind of similar in a way. Like, all of those are long-range chips. The Scimitar doesn't want to be up front. The Blackbird certainly does not want to be up front. But I feel like it diverges in the trickle-down bans, whereas the Aneros is more of a hedge. The Aneros is kind of rarely, in my experience, seen in the kind of comps that would take the Scimitar, despite the fact that they are both Tech 2 logistics. Whereas the Nighthawk is often more popular in an aggressive comp, so it's a hedge against range versus up front, maybe, whereas the Aneros is more of a armor versus shield and mid-range close versus long range. So I think that both of them don't want to be out-kited, and that makes me think that we are going to see something brawly or something pseudo-dad like the last matchup.
Ooh, pseudo dad. Interesting. Well, we're gonna keep that one on the back burner there. We'll drop a couple pseudo dads and dad Chad memes later in the tournament. We do see a Blackbird ban here too. I don't think we've seen Blackbirds be particularly effective here. Misty, you're nodding ahead, though no one can see it but me. But Blackbirds, like, why ban them?
I mean, so I alluded to it a little bit in the ban theory chat, but I don't think there's an effective replacement for a Blackbird at the Tech 1 kind of cruiser line. You know, if you ban a Falcon, they can still bring the Rook and vice versa. But if you ban the Blackbird, then they need to either increase the point cost that they're investing in the ECM or bring the Frigate if they still want to be able to bring the ECM to the grid.
I feel like we just lost him. Or I lost my ability to hear.
I can't hear him either, right?
All right, cool. I can still hear. Good news, everybody. Misty, I think your mic just died, but that's quite unfortunate.
I want to add to the point which I think that Misty is saying, and that is there's a big difference between a silver bullet ban, like you ban it and they can't replace it, or just making their comp weaker at something they could take. And the Blackbird is definitely a silver bullet ban in that
Is this better?
Kitsunes are pretty bad. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes. Yeah.
Bad at surviving, I should say, not bad in general necessarily.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes we slight technical difficulties every once in a while. But thank you for popping in and catching up on that and getting all that sorted. So yes, chip bans, exciting. ECM, also exciting. Interestingly enough, ECM really hasn't seemed to be good in the feeder so far, but whether that is a execution issue or a rule set change, we will find out later. ECM teams generally being considered, you know, despite what Twitch chat and the general populace think, actually incredibly difficult to execute and play correctly. A lot of people are like, grr, ECM, overpowered. If it was overpowered, why does it lose almost every single time? Food for thought. All that being said, we are going to be heading into the match shortly here, as both teams are landing right now. So Twitch chat has given predictions. I would love to get your guys' predictions. However, I believe it's actually going to start here in just a second. So we are going to see X877 versus really, really long name, and with our commentators, Jinton and Wingnut.
G'day, mates, and here we are in the arena, brother, and we got X877 versus Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Assassin Squad eSports. That's right, I can get the name right first time. How you doing there, Jin, mate? How you looking at?
I'm doing good, and I'm really excited to see this matchup because we've got another sort of weird variant of Max Threat here coming out from X877 versus a much more standard version here from Hidden Leaf Ninjas. They're going to be trying to utilize all of these medium turrets, Ninjas are, to try and snipe off those support ships, and if they can't get them out, it's going to actually be kind of potentially a difficult match here for Jutsu.
I'm just trying to spot. I'm seeing if I'm missing something. I can see the Kirin. Is there another logi ship I'm missing? Is there just one?
No, and that's actually quite interesting. There's only one logistic ship here from the Kirins, from the team of X877. Not sure where that's come from, but the match has begun, and we can see that Manticore taking a ton of DPS right off the bat. He's just got a little bit of shield reps, but that's not going to be enough to keep him up versus all of this DPS from Jutsu. Can X877 do anything in return, though?
I'm not sure. The Confessor of Carl O'Neill is going to be licking his lips and enjoying life as he kills one ship already. The Kieran's going to be an easy target. The Flycatcher is going to be a pretty easy target for him if he survives. I was going to say the interesting ship in this lineup is going to be the Celestis, trying to remove some of the potential of the battle cruisers. But honestly, without Logi support, that man is screwed.
Well, it doesn't look like they're focusing on logistic support because you can see where all of the EHP from that Brute 6 Navy issue is. It's in the hull. We have some people trying to honor tank, as it were, as I believe CCP Overload talked about earlier. This is really, really risky. Using a Balgorn in a hull tank comp, it might have a lot of EHP, but you need that thing to stay on grid for as long as humanly possible to get the points worth out of it. And it's going to be difficult for them to do that without any logistics.
Mention that as well. I'm pretty sure the Confessor of Carl is actually holding that Balgorn down as well. So the problem with these hull tank fits is basically you've got a limited lifespan and the ability to do something. If you don't do it in time, it's like if you fight off rapid heavies and have no ammo left. There's nothing you can do. As you see, that one ship already down, and what have they done in the opposing team? Basically nothing. The Confessor is still holding the Balgorn. The Sentinel is still being an absolute nightmare. If they're going for a hull tank rush, they've already failed as far as I'm concerned. They need to do something now.
This is weird. It's almost like a whole tank kite setup from X877. You can see Jutsu kind of reacting to this. They're all kiting away, all trying to stay outside of that 30-kilometer range where the Balgorn is so powerful. But it looks like he's finally getting into range. This is the one chance X877 has. They're muting out that Starte of Kami and Ari, and he's going to fall behind his team. If they can get on top of him and start pumping DPS into it, that's how X877 executes. But I don't know how they're going to be able to do that now with two of their main DPS ships off the grid.
So their Celestis was actually damping at the Executor, trying to remove him from the fight. But it's like, great, you've done that. What's your follow-up? And they're kind of stuck. There's nothing they can really do. They've just been kind of held here and not been able to break free. So you've brought a tool for a job, and that tool has been basically useless because you can't follow it up. You've got a hammer without a nail.
Yeah, we've got our fellow commentator there, the Basilisk, finally taken to the DPS. He's been doing a great job just sitting in front of his team, trying to position himself so that he can screen off these flycatchers as they come in. It does look like the flycatcher's finally gotten into the back lines, though. They're going to tackle something down here, and we're going to have to see what X877 chooses to do from this point onwards. The Brutix Navy issue going down is going to take them down to just a few thousand DPS here. Which won't be enough to really break things under exec reps. So they might have to find a way into the back line, which is going to be super difficult for them.
Yeah, I see the Executor Navy of Francis over trying to do something along those lines, but nope, that's not going to happen, unfortunately, as, pop team is just vanishing remarkably quickly. The Balgorn's just being left alone. It's being, hard tackled, I believe, by the Confessor this entire time, and basically been worthless. There's nothing you can do. You can't move. You're being held down. He's been trying to nuke the Confessor, but the Confessor just does not care. I wonder if the Confessor's got a NOS. He does, yeah.
Yeah,
this is the whole time.
Probably a good time to talk about the fact that there are 4 Execra Navy issues on the field, though. I think this just goes to show the power of that ship. My God, with the discounted points, the Exec Navy is probably arguably the best faction cruiser in the game already. The fact that it's cheaper than all of the rest of them is why we're seeing so much of them. These things can reach out across the grid and touch anything if you fit them with rails, or if you fit them as X877 has here with blasters. They can do insane amount of DPS. You can do something like 1,000 DPS with heat, and that's enough to burn through ships quickly, much like that Balgorn is getting burnt through by Jutsu's comp here.
I will say as well, their fall-off bonus as well, it makes it very surprising how far they can truly reach with blasters. It's not as great as some other ships, but it's still, again, it's a very surprising thing where you can be hit with null, 600 DPS at range. It's kind of scary. As the Balgorn now is the next primary, which honestly, they could have left it there till last and still won this match. But you might as well kill it off. It's right there. It's probably maximum hull tank, which honestly, it's going down remarkably quickly for a potential max hull tank fit.
Yeah, and it looks like we might be seeing another 100-0 slam dunk victory here. It's been relatively rare so far in the tournament. I think a lot of the matches that we've seen have had a lot of trading go back and forth just because of how cheap these high DPS, low EHP ships like the ENI are.
I also like as well for the Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Assassin Squad esports team, they've pretty much got equal amount of damage and control in this comp. They're able to basically control the opponent just enough and then rip them apart with a lot of DPS and a lot of ships. It's honestly, this comp is quite hard to pull apart in one move. Most comps have one linchpin ship. You could basically remove any singular ship in this comp and it would still function remarkably well. Sure, you can remove Logi, it wouldn't last as long, but it still has enough DPS to break through you while doing so. It's honestly, I quite like these kind of comps.
Yeah, these max threat comps were super effective last year, and I think they're only going to get better this year now that there isn't the prevalence of tracking disruptors and damps, which can hamper their ability to actually apply properly. You know, if you can concentrate all the fire of 8. Oh wow, the Astarte has pound troops.
Was that a pity point there?
Oh, they're all pandering at the end of the game just for fun.
Please go back to the studio before I die. Thank you.
And Hidden Village Ninja team successfully beats X877. Unfortunately for them, they will have to continue to play more games, or fortunately, depending on if they are here for fun or if they're here to make it in. Pretty interesting comp, sort of a similar setup there. I think I want to say Wingnut made a really, really good call out there, though, that the Hidden team didn't really have any linchpin ships. So what did he mean by that, Dujek?
That's when one ship isn't holding up one of the 3 triangles of a successful comp that Jin has talked about previously. One being reps or the ability to survive, one being damage and projection, and the third being the ability to control the match, I think. He didn't finish the analogy last time I watched it. But it's not one ship tackling or only one ship doing DPS. Like, killing one DPS ship, taking 400 DPS off the field, still allows them to keep killing stuff. And that is an important thing a lot of the time, unless you go heavy on control.
Yeah, I think the analogy he was trying to make was pretty much what you said, is that every AT team needs to have some form of reps, at least 3,000 DPS, and some amount of control. And you can kind of cheese the DPS a little bit if you have insane amounts of control, but even then, like, you see most teams, like even the most disgusting, nasty, like every single ship is some kind of ECM ship, they still generally have about 2,500 DPS. But that's kind of going into the weeds a little bit there. However, this team definitely had more. We saw a massive amount of potential DPS, but not actually any applied from X877 because they had neutron blaster cannons on their Brutix Navy issues. Mystical Might. What?
I mean, I guess there's the age-old big number mean good. So if you're looking at tank, big number typically good. If you're looking at damage, big number typically good. There are trade-offs that come with big damage, which means perhaps shorter range. And in an AT setting where you have to make trade-offs between control, between tank, and between damage, and projection, not having that projection is kind of crippling for some of the ships on the X877 side. If they'd had rails and they were able to more effectively apply to the Hyena and the Sentinel at the beginning of the match, I think that match would have been a lot closer. They had the Hyena webbed at one point with the Balgon webs, which means that they could have effectively removed the control that Hidden Ninja Leaf Village had. towards the beginning and then begin burning in towards the exec, and then they could have perhaps traded a bit more effectively. But yeah, I mean, their weapon choice really is one of the things that detracted from their ability to win there.
Absolutely. If you cannot get your damage onto the other ship, it doesn't matter how much damage you actually have there. Also, Dujek, so we've seen a couple of these over the last, I guess this today and then last weekend, these really, really high DPS, high projection setups. And I think you called it a pseudo dad. So we're going to call it a pseudo dad. Kind of tell me, how does that team work? Why is it so good? Because they seem to be winning a lot.
Yeah, I figured that I'd start saying, for the people who don't know why we keep calling it dad-related things, is it used to have 8 battle cruisers and be called Octodad. You're no longer allowed to take 8 battle cruisers, so you have to settle for 4, and you'll take a number of cruisers that do medium long-range guns. So, like, it's the whole concept of the comp is take as many medium long-range guns as you can, and apply to things. And one of the underrated issues with, or like aspects of medium long range guns, rails and lasers, is that they do kind of high damage at shorter ranges. So you decide what range the engagement is going to take place at. If you're flying against ham rush, you're doing more damage because you don't have to stay far away. And if you're going up against something that kites, you can even decide to be so far away that they can't hit you. And at every range, you do as much damage as you can and try to pick apart their team from their most important ships to their least important ships.
Absolutely. Well said. It's very, very powerful, gives you a lot of flexibility. I think that it's also been called, like Jintan's called it max threat. A lot of the sort of internal teams, they'll just call it like projection DPS setups. Very, very, very strong. We are seeing it quite prevalent so far. At least it's been very winning. Like a couple teams have used it, and they're usually getting 100-0s. And Misty, why is it so good this year?
I think that, well, we've got the mix of reasons. One is that you can't bring offensive E-War on all of your ships nowadays. So you have to bring a ship that has an innate kind of E-War bonus for the type of E-War that you want to bring. So you need to bring a Curse, a Sentinel, a Crucifier, those types of ships if you want tracking disruptors. And those are the ships or the type of E-War that would really threaten the concept of the pseudo-dad, which means that you can't project as far, you can't hit those smaller targets because your tracking has been lowered, that kind of stuff. So we've seen that kind of drop out of the meta with the rule changes. But I think it's also just kind of easier to fly, because really you just need to double click in one direction, which is typically away from the enemy team, and they'll begin to fall over. Target selection is going to be really important, so that's something that they need to kind of work on a little bit. They'll need to know the order of preference that they need to put in place when calling their targets. So like Dujek said, they need to understand what the really important ships are that need to die at the start. But that's much easier to figure out than perhaps how to do an ECM control comp with like 2 damage ships, because that can fall apart really easily, whereas if you lose 2 or 3 damage ships in your pseudo-dad, you still have another like 5 to fall back on. So it's just ease of execution, I think, as well.
Absolutely. And it is the feeders, so I think that it's not that teams are necessarily bringing bad comps, it's that they're not bringing their best setups, because all of these teams still have to get through the actual tournament. So if they show their best thing now, people have over a month to figure out how to counter it. So always something to think about. Gets a little bit in the weeds there. Are teams doing silly things because they're silly, or are they doing it as part of this overall meta thing? Obviously, if they win, it was overall meta, and if they lose, then, well, you lost. So that is what it is. But that match is over. We will be moving on to Hisec Miners versus CAStabouts. CAStabouts upsetting their way into this match. So we saw CAStabouts at the beginning of the day. People lost a absolute boatload of channel points, and we're going to be seeing them again here. So they really didn't have that much turnaround. Dujek, they only had, about an hour and a half?
Yeah, there's a lot of stress. I know as a captain, when you get the BANE convo as you're leaving your previous match, like is not necessarily the first thing that you want to think about. Like, you want to run and get something to drink and so on, and like debrief your team from what happened in the last match. So immediately onto it, we might see them bring something similar unless they feel like they've told people what they're going to bring. Like, if it's an easy counter, then they're going to have to switch it up, even if they like their comp. Maybe if it was a gotcha moment, it can't be the same one again.
Well, it kind of was a gotcha. They did the sort of honor tank setup, I guess, is a good as we learned that it is called. And we do actually have the bans here, and I can tell you that they also ban different things. So CAStabouts banned the Balgorn, the Barghest, and Hisec Miners banned the Mollusk and the Carries. So CAStabout last time at their first match, they banned the Hyena instead of the Balgorn. So a little bit interesting there. Misty, looking at these bans, like let's get an amazing, let's see you predict the comps again like you did a couple matches ago.
Okay, I could predict the comp a couple matches ago because I had a bit more idea about the teams and some of their history in other tournaments. In this particular case, I feel like Hisec Miners again wants to have perhaps some of those a projection-esque comp. I don't know if it's going to be necessarily in the same vein as Pseudodad. It might be that they're just looking to be able to project out with armor while they burn in, and don't want to be pinned down a little bit by the damps that would be coming in from the Mollusk and Carries. And with CAStabouts, it looks like they're just trying to remove high damage burst at range and also the crippling effect of newts and webs from the Balgorn. So again, I think both teams are probably just going to brawl, to be honest, or at least have armor comps, sorry, that kind of want to sit within like 50 to 70k.
All right, and Dujek, what are you feeling here? Like, looking at this, what are you kind of expecting to see? I mean,
well, for my match, I did ban the Mollusk Carries. It's kind of, it doesn't say a lot about what you want to go. Like, if you're not facing Mollusk Carries, you could be projecting and you could be wanting to lock something far away that you're running away from, or you could be wanting to be stationary and shooting something far away that is trying to get away from you. So I'm not reading a whole lot into that, except for like I assume that they're more likely to be on the mid-range control setup of something armor-based. Whereas the two other bans, I'm going to go ahead and say that they don't want to face something that is going to restrict their movement too much. A Barghest will kill you at range, a Balgorn will web you at range. So I think they are more likely to want to kite a bit, or at least be able to close the different distance quickly. And I guess we're going to see something Galente flavored for CAStabouts.
Awesome. Well, they have been doing interesting hull tank setups already in the past, so that is very, very likely here. We are actually going to head to the arena in just a second here because both teams have landed, and it does appear that they are ready to do spaceship things. And there's some interesting stuff going on here. I can give you a little hint that a certain caster will be very, very happy because one of their favorite ships is on grid. So we are going to hand this off to Fear and Alec.
Welcome back to the arena. My name is Tirvanda, joined by Alexib Card, and on the blue side, CAStabouts have brought a very tanky version of a Shield Rush comp with a lot of up-tank ships, a Cerberus, a Nighthawk, a Cyclone Fleet issue, but not as much ham damage as you typically expect from this type of setup with really only 4 ham ships.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately for them, they're about to run into a big wall of hit points with a double Abaddon Vindicator core supported by some light tackle here. This is going to be dicey for CAStabouts.
Yeah, those 90% webs on the Vindicator can be very dicey to deal with, but you also have to remember the Nighthawk and the Loki both push over 1,000 DPS with heat, and one of them is not damage locked. So as we see the start, this is actually going to be a wraparound play from the side of CAStabouts. They're going to try to dodge this Magus trying to burst in towards the rest of their team right now. The Mauler of Complexity and Teleri is actually currently the primary target from CAStabouts as they try to get away from this Vindicator for the time being.
Meanwhile, nobody told the Hawk, which just ran in straight away. He is not paying the price for it, though. Actually, in fact, the Magus from Hisec Miners, just got melted. Absolutely melted.
Absolutely
That's
melting.
links down.
So what's happening right now is CAStabouts are going straight for the support wing. Typically in a shield rush setup, you go from trying to get the highest DPS per EHP off the field as quickly as possible, especially in a shield rush mirror match. This time around, they want to get the links off the table in order to get the Vindicator webs down to a normal range, because Vindicator doesn't have range bonuses on the webs, but does have the strength bonuses. And we see here the Fleet Cyclone of Red House going down very quickly. This is an effective ship to take down and the least tanky ship from CAStabouts. Under these Vindicator webs, he is not long for the world with all the damage that blasters plus the pulse lasers of these Abbas gives towards them.
Yeah, I think this is CAStabouts playing for the late game, prioritizing the links here. Now they're going after the logistics of the Thalia Deacon. They're trying to clip the support wing to isolate these battleships. It's making them more controllable, reducing the range of the Vindicator, as you said, Fear, but also reducing their mobility, reducing the things that can tackle for them, reducing reps that will come into those bonus to bat and resist hulls. They're really playing to just chip away all the support and slowly chop down this team, and they're methodically doing so, mowing down the support wing of Hisec Miners.
And interestingly, Jay Umbrell is currently getting damage from these Abbas. They do have relatively high production just because of the way the pulses work. But at the same time, he's able to actually shrug this off fairly effectively because he's got Tech 2 Mimitar resists and actually has quite a bit of EM and thermal resistances right now. So while the rest of his team is deleting the control in the low end from the side of Hisec Miners, he's just taking this damage right now while the rest of his team has decided to take down this Arbitrator, probably going to hold on this Mauler right now and then move on to this Vindicator, who is now all on his own with no actual support wing to help him out.
In fact, the Hawk has pinned down the Vindicator, who has counter-webbed him, but they're still not able to track, actually. The Hawk being kept up very comfortably just by a set of light shield bots.
Yeah, and obviously the Tech 2 medium or Tech 2 large reppers from the Scimitar as well do a lot of range. You have Scimitar as well. He's got the projection. He's got the speed to basically kite this out. This is actually a really good adaptation from CAStabouts to start this match off. I think something that a lot of people expect when you see a shield rush is to just go straight in and then try to take the big things out of the picture. But we see from CAStabouts, they're starting with the low end. They're working their way back up. They finally have taken down the Mauler, and they can actually win the war of attrition because they're faster and there's no actual ability for anyone from the side of Hisec Miners to catch anyone from CAStabouts because all their ships are really, really slow. So even though you have 90% webs, it's just not going to be enough. That said, they're all piling on to this Vindicator now as he is not going to be very long for the world under the pressure of 3 ham boats.
Yeah, absolute MVP plays from Ian Wakefield, the Hawk pilot on CAStabouts. He fearlessly charged in while the rest of his team was trying to kite around. He beelined for that Vindicator, got onto him with a scram, and has stayed under his guns, keeping him pinned and immobile for this entire match, making it relatively trivial for CAStabouts to maneuver around that sphere of death that the 90% Vindicator webs usually entails. That Hawk has no problems. He is bonused kinetic thermal, so he will take very little damage from the blasters of the Vindicator, and he's just been parked there, keeping him, like I said, perfectly immobile, barely taking any damage. And that Vindy has just played a non-factor in this match, despite being arguably a linchpin of the Hisec Miners setup, a pin that is about to be pulled as his structure goes down.
This is just really, really well played from CAStabouts. I can't say it enough. The difference between good execution on a shield rush and bad execution on a shield rush that still wins is the ability to tell when to actually pull the trigger. I think a lot of teams, when they see a shield rush setup or they fly a shield rush setup, they immediately think, well, we just got to go in and be as efficient with our damage as possible. But here we saw a higher level of execution where they say, okay, this ship's a linchpin, but we can take him out without of the match without taking our ships and putting them in a danger zone. And so you saw that Hawk pilot go in. Well, the Hawk, even though he's under 90% webs, has a tiny sig radius. And while he's able to keep this Vindicator down, the Abbas can't actually shoot him with their pulses because they have some not amazing tracking on those Abbas. So the Abbas went for the Scimitar, who's bonused against that EM and thermal, and he's able to survive the entire time. This Loki's able to survive the entire time. It's just beautiful play from the side of CAStabouts. Yeah, they lost a Fleet Cyclone, but in a matchup that I think a lot of times can go the way of the armor control, they saw their opportunities and they were able to capitalize on them and win this match. Going to be 100-15 once this Abba goes down.
Yeah, I think also a shout out to the CAStabouts FC. Very methodical shot calling, isolating that target, as you said, and then systematically picking apart the Hisec miners comp from the most important ships to the least important ships, as they talked about on the commentary desk before this match got going, taking out the links, understanding this was going to be a long match with the big battleship hit point pools, and just then going for the logistics, then the disruption, and then finally the battleships that they had isolated and pinned down for so long. There were really non-factors here, aside from killing that Cyclone. They just left them for last because without that support, they were absolutely powerless. And that's the way this match played out as we throw it back to the desk for some analysis.
Rain, are you in an armor vagabond or something?
No, I've got Axel ISP.
And polarized guns or what?
Kasig, you are one of two people that couldn't listen and couldn't check bookmarks and find your own way out. The route, the entire route was literally bookmarked out to Losec. I bookmarked it 10 minutes in advance!
Guys, stop being casual. They're really bad. We should not lose anybody to this. Warp off. Warp off. Take the fleet warp. Everybody warp off. This is really bad execution. I'm very disappointed.
And with that, CAStabouts has cast Hisec miners out of the feeders. They are gone. They will not be returning until potentially the next Alliance tournament. Pretty good play on CAStabouts' part. We did see a shield rush. It was a little bit different from some of the ones we've seen, but Dujek, how did you like that match? What did you think about it?
It was a good match. I feel like I would have not wanted to be on the CAStabouts side of that normally. I like how they handled that. Like, when I get put in a shield rush, I'm like, okay, we need to kill something big. And when all you have are hams, everything looks like a battleship. And killing all the low end and securing tackle to survive, it was a good play, and it won them the game.
Absolutely. They definitely did the correct move there. I believe Wingnut in our back channel said it was a shield rush that was smart enough not to rush. And Misty, do you agree with that? Do you think that's a pretty good way of explaining that fight?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the way that CAStabouts played kind of took me by surprise. I wasn't paying massive attention to the weapon systems until someone pointed out that it was shield rush, at which point I had to go take a look at some of the ships and see how fast they were shooting their missiles and what weapon systems they were actually using. I think that they played it really well. I think that the type of approach that they took in this match isn't something that we typically expect from some teams going into the feeders, right? Because they'll either have a history behind them of not necessarily doing as well as one would hope, or they're fairly new to the AT and the stresses that come with it. And I think that CAStabouts have weathered that really well by finding themselves in a position that, by all means, they should probably really, really struggle to win. and managing to play it in a way that allows them to claw back, I suppose, victory from the jaws of defeat in that sense. I think that there are some things that Hisec miners could have done a little bit better. They allowed their Vindicator to be pinned down for a significant portion of that match by a single Hawk. The Hawk did an amazing job, but the Vindicator, while webbing down that Hawk, should have instructed the rest of his battleships to switch and clear that Hawk as soon as possible, thus freeing the Vindicator to actually start chasing down some of the ships on the CAStabouts side. By leaving that Vindicator pinned, they removed a lot of the web threat, I suppose, that the Vindicator carries, and also it's not able to project because it has blasters fit. So they effectively nullified the Vindicator in this match for a significant portion of it. But yeah, I'm really happy to see how CAStabouts has played.
Yeah, absolutely. We did see the Vindicator shoot the Hawk once, actually, and the blasters knocked it down almost 40% shield in one hit. And then I think that the Hawk hit his ADC. The Vindicator shot again and was like, wow, I'm not doing damage. And then Hisec miners just decided to stop shooting the Hawk for the rest of the match. And I think everybody, and anyone who's flown Munins or against Munins on TQ knows that once the ADC is popped, you just switch back to them 10 seconds later and you can kill them. But all that being said, we will be seeing Pandemic Legion versus White Flag. However, we will not be seeing them for approximately half an hour. We are going to take a break here just a little bit so that everybody can go get water, do their things. Our amazing, insane ref team definitely needs a break because they are doing all of the behind-the-scenes stuff that makes this continue to run on time every single time. So huge shout out to them. But other than that, we are actually going to send it off to a break. We will return at probably about 18:55, maybe a little later, for Pandemic Legion versus White Flag and more spaceship explosions. So see you then. Welcome back to the feeders after the break, and I am now joined by Mark Resurrectus and Moderator, the well-known person who constantly mutes people in the back of the stream just because it's funny. He is an agent of pure chaos and evil. Moderator, how are you doing?
You know, I'm glad to be here, joined by Mark. We got Eminem here and Black Bar Pirate. Should be an excellent cast, excellent round of matches coming through. A lot of these are going to be teams competing in the very first round, so direct into the main Alliance tournament. And I'm looking forward to seeing these matches.
Awesome. And Mark, how are you?
Bart, I'm doing very well. Thank you. As always, I'm extremely excited about another thrilling round of matches. This is where champions are made, Bart. This is where the people come together to really show who is cream of the crop. And I want to be here for it. And I'm glad I am. Thank you.
Awesome. I see you are you're practicing for your burgeoning ASMR career. After all of the wormhole teams are out and they evict you from space, you will become an ASMR champion.
What I'm really practicing for, and what the people at home don't know, is that I made a bet with Fear Vina last week that if my bracket does better than his bracket, I know we're not supposed to talk about the brackets, but if his bracket does better than my bracket, I have to wear a shirt going forward. So I'm trialing that out today. I do have a shirt on. This is extremely unusual for me, but the upside is that if I win, Fear Vina has to shave his head. So really, I mean, who's risking something here? That's all.
Yeah, you kind of won out on that one. That was
yeah, I do.
Fear's making interesting choices. Speaking of interesting choices, we actually have a match coming up in 3 minutes, and we should talk about that because it is the legendary, probably, I think infamous is probably a good word for it, Pandemic Legion versus White Flag. Pandemic Legion being one of the oldest tournament teams in existence in EVE Online. Have had a little bit of a rough patch recently, but here they are again in the feeders, banning the Executor Navy issue and the Hyena, with White Flag banning the Abaddon and the Deacon. So, Moderator, let's talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, so Pandemic Legion saying, hey, you know, you're White Flag, you're a Hydra practice partner. We're wanting to get rid of the Executor Navy issue, a comp that can definitely fit into a lot of the White Flag armor comps. And they want to take out the Hyena, which is going to be an excellent range control ship. Kind of White Flag, formerly lock range enjoyers, flew that very well in the last year, so understandable that they would not want that here.
Excellent. Yes, so White Flag is relatively. They did pretty dang well last year. I believe they either got top 8 or top 6. So good tournament pedigree. A lot of well-known tournament players there. Mark, what are you thinking is going to happen here? Like, give us a quick little rundown.
I think the White Flag team is going to look really good in this match. I know PL has a storied tournament pedigree, but PL, the Alliance, also has a storied tournament pedigree, which has been diminished somewhat of late. And I think we're going to see a lot of that here. The White Flag, we didn't talk too much about the White Flag bans, but going with Abaddon and Deacon, I think is just staples of any heavy armor comp that you'll see in one of these. Especially in the feeder matches, you'll see a lot of teams field dual Abaddon. Sometimes they'll field, Deacon as part of their armor logi. So finding a way to put limitations on that, forcing teams to be more flexible, I think is a smart move here.
Absolutely, and the teams are just starting to land, so we do have a little tiny bit of time here before it goes off. So I'm just going to get a quick round of predictions. Moderator, who are you feeling is winning this one?
White Flag by a landslide.
A landslide. Mark, what are you thinking?
I mean, the smart money's on White Flag. I feel like it'd be pretty dumb if I didn't say White Flag, so I'm going to say White Flag.
All right, we got 2 for White Flag and 1 person being neutral, which is the worst of all things to do. However, we are going to send it off to the arena right here because the teams are ready and they are about to begin blowing each other up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the arena. We are here to watch Pandemic Legion go up against White Flag Dot. And here we can see that White Flag Dot have brought something very traditional, their own little take on the max threat setup with 4 battle cruisers and 3 cruisers, all aiming to use those medium guns to just spam out high application DPS at the start of the match. What have PL brought against that, Wingnut?
Oh, mate. They brought the double pancake setup with a lot of rapid lights backing up, I believe. Interesting thing as well is that the mauler that's in the quad battlecruiser comp actually has guns. There's actually a gun mauler on top of the Augur and Navies. I thought it was going to be nukes as a backup, but no. They've brought guns and everything. This is a lot of DPS with the carries to give it some more support as the match is underway.
Yep, and we can see that Osprey taking a massive amount of DPS really quickly off the bat. The range and application of those medium guns just coming into play immediately, taking it into structure. That's 9 points off the board right away. And they're going for the trade here. They're trying to use the long range and high application of those RLMLs and RHMLs from the Barghest to take through that Augur in return. But look at the damage that they're doing to these support ships. They are not going to have boosts for very, very long here, the PLC. So PLC.
And these rapid light comps are well known for being able to kill support really quickly, but basically they are forced into training for the Augur, otherwise they're just going to lose it outright. And already, it's kind of already too late. Support wing's dead, Osprey's dead, the small ships are dying, the rapid lights are trying to kill the carriers of try and bring something back, but that Augur keeping it alive. This has gone so bad, so quickly. This is just so much projection from these 4 battlecruisers, plus Augur and Navies.
Don't count them out just yet. PL still have ways back into this match. You can Tin Baron might have done a great job in getting away from that initial burst volley, somehow sort of managing to survive against all of those missiles. Oh, actually, I say that, and full on One Graven, the Barghest, half of their DPS here.
The longer Tin lasts, the longer he keeps in this arena, the more it hurts for PL. And with the Barghest going into Hull and Tin still just holding in armor, I think he's about to go down. There he goes. And you can see the lead already built for this team. They've got all their DPS core intact. They've killed off a good chunk of DPS for PL. It's a very tall mountain to try and ask them to climb, especially when they've got instant projection from battle cruisers versus a rapid heavy clip.
The one good thing you can say about Pandemic Legion at this point is that they still haven't had anything really get caught down, but it doesn't matter when you're facing this much projection and this much DPS. They're going to kill you even if you can run away until the ends of the earth.
Yeah, if they were going against a rush comp, like a blaster rush comp, this comp would be really good from PL, but unfortunately, they're not. They're up against a comp that can very happily engage them at the exact same range and apply more DPS doing so. You see, Verdict in the carries is still alive. The Augur is long gone, and this guy still won't die. There he finally goes. He finally gets something off the grid, but it's just painful.
Yeah, you can see PL now on reload as well. And this must be like the most depressing thing to experience. You're just sitting there waiting to die, looking at a progress timer, knowing you're probably not going to survive until by the point it actually runs out.
Also, someone shooting the mauler. Really? Are you picking the mauler? Okay, the Augur Navies are tanky, but that mauler resist bonus with a reactive is not going to be fun when you've got rapids.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will say though, this is a really interesting little variation on the max threat comp that we're seeing here from White Flag, and I'll be curious to see if that comes to the forefront with the other teams. You know, there's no Executor navies at all there.
That's the interesting thing I think about this comp is this here is just showing that you can't just ban the exec navy and expect that will remove these battle cruiser heavy comps, because you can just go, okay, well, fine, we can't bring these, but we can bring Organ navies, pay a few more points, and still get an incredibly potent comp. It's kind of showing how do you ban this out properly.
Yeah, you pretty much can't. And
Not
now
gonna
we're
be
just going to
easy,
sit
that's
here
for
and
sure.
wait for Destroyer to die, unfortunately. He's got just a few last little bits of HP remaining, and all of those blue cruisers just converging on him now at the
I
edge
just
of the
want to note
arena.
as well, what target is he shooting at? The one ship there is actually the easiest to kill.
Oh, he's
which is the
going for an
Hurricane.
MJD! He's going for a boundary record in a bar guess!
I don't think he's going to get the record, but he's definitely going to go for a long distance. He's going for that wormhole. Look, there's a wormhole out there. Go for it, buddy. Get out of here. Pop. Well, that's definitely not one way we want to see PL go, but well done. Very potent win for White Flag. And go back to the studio and see what they think.
Pew, 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 pew. Pew, pew, pew. I buried the pot.
Farmer's Bar could be anywhere.
White Flag absolutely punishing Pandemic Legion. That was probably one of the fastest matches that we've had today, if not the fastest. Very, very brutal. Pretty much, it wasn't 100-0, but it was definitely quite quick. Moderator, what happened there?
Yeah, so Pandemic Legion ran a kite comp against a kite comp, but a kite comp that has generally less mobility, but instead it trades for more projection and more damage. And we saw just kind of a very brutal trade where the White Flag team worked through the logistics and then burn out the support end and then basically snowball that. Pandemic Legion having the Rapid Heavies kind of dumped all their damage early, whereas every single ship on the side of White Flag is a gunship which does consistent damage, and Heal just can't take that trade long term.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. Obviously, Pandemic Legion was still able to get a couple kills. Tin Baron died, as Tin Baron does, but Tin Baron often dies, and his team still wins. It's one of the most storied and long-term logistics pilots. Very, very good pilot. And Mark, what do you have to say about that match?
Well, what's interesting, and it's funny that you bring up the fact that Tin Baron was able to survive. In a lot of cases, what you'll see, and he played this very well. He used his body as a kind of a lightning rod of their attention, right? We talk a lot of times about teams tunneling too hard on one target. In this case, you have two Bargus who, in any situation, are usually able to clip an AUG with their rapid heavies. But spending too much time focused on the AUG, which is important, you have to get rid of it at some point, while the AUG is burning way away from the rest of the match. And at the same time, while the rest of your team is then, getting chipped up from the bottom, is a smart move. And Tin played it exactly the way he needed to. He's, like I said, he was a fleshy target. He threw himself out there, shook his business a little bit, got their attention, and then scampered. And that was it was very well played. Pretty good.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, actually. So missile application and missile mechanics is probably one of the most complex things in EVE Online. Some of the stuff is easy, but the missile, if you've ever looked at the formula, it has more letters than numbers in it, and that generally means the math is more complicated. So we actually have a pretty awesome little graph, and not really a graph, a visual about missiles. And moderator, kind of walk us through it a little bit here.
Yeah, so we're kind of going through how the application works, and basically, if you're a small ship, you're able to outrun kind of the blast and the explosion, radius of those ships. So take like a Jaguar or a smaller ship is able to go much faster than say a cruiser or a battleship, which will take the full range of that. And some missiles explode faster than others. For example, the rapid lights explode very quickly, but they don't do a lot of damage. Compare that to something like a torpedo, which does a ton of damage, basically battleship or bomber type of weapon, but it explodes very slowly, so they're very poor against smaller ships. Excellent against killing, battleships and capitals, as many people hunt with them.
And we kind of saw that there. We had a auger, which has a very low. It's a very low signature radius. So in Eve terms, that means it is small for the missile, and it just didn't take that much damage. It survived for a very long time.
Yeah.
There's also a weird thing about missiles too that some people don't quite get necessarily, which is that if you're kiting away from them, their range is actually smaller. Mark, do you feel comfortable explaining why that is?
If you're cutting away from a missile, the range of the missile is smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's because the missile itself only has such, from the point that the missile leaves your ship, the missile has a predetermined amount of distance it can go, right? The missile is always going to hit you if it's within that range, if it can, if it can keep pace with you. We've seen people outrun, larger missiles before in smaller, faster ships, right? So if you are then kiting away from that ship, the point where the missile starts is here. You may be here. As you're both moving this direction, it may seem to the person who's kiting after you that the range between you and the missile is about the same as it was before, or closing, but the missile started way all the way back here. So it's one of those situations where that count starts immediately after the missile's fired. If it runs out before it hits the target, the missile just dies in space, and that's just it won't apply. So that's why a lot of times people will say against missile comps, especially against missile comps that don't have the same kind of range. Like we've talked before about like hams and how hams are maybe not optimal in these kind of fights. Hams don't have nearly as much range as heavy missiles or cruise missiles. So a good tactic is, if you can, just get out of the way of the missile. Just get away, just run away, and you'll be fine. No big deal.
Yeah, missiles are weird. It is a fantastic weapon system because you don't have to worry about tracking. However, there are other things you do have to worry about. So with Tin Baron flying directly away from them, it actually made a lot of the early missiles not apply. So it was a very, very good call. Incidentally, you can also have it work the opposite direction. If you charge into missiles, the effective DPS of the missiles will actually be higher because you are getting hit faster. Something you don't really see that much. A long, long time ago in a galaxy far, I'm not going to say that, finish that, I don't want to get copyrighted, but there is tactics like cavalry ravens, or maybe more relevant to the tournament, bombers, where the bombers would charge in and get 2 or 3 torpedo volleys to hit at the same time. Very, very hard to do. You don't really see it that much anymore because bombers just die nowadays, thanks to things like what we just saw. 8 gunships is a lot of gunships. It's like a lot of gunships. That being said, looking at the comp mod, that was kind of a throwback from PL. Like, how, obviously it didn't win, but how do you feel about that setup in general with this tournament and this rules?
So last year we especially didn't see it at all because we used to have guidance disruption being on any ship, and now you can really only put the scripts on any ship that has a bonus to it. And the problem that we're running into with a lot of these kind of setups is that they really are hurt by exactly one arbitrator or one. If you get guidance or range disruption on, like 4 or 5 ships, you're down like 70% of your range. And for a comp that needs to kite, it means you have to close to tackle range if you want to apply any damage, which is basically a complete and utter death sentence and makes the comp, I'd say, borderline non-viable if you run against opponents that have good disruption comps.
Absolutely. Obviously, with the rule change, you can't fit disruption on every single ship anymore, so you can't do what I believe Tuskars did last time, where they flew a shield missile kite setup, except everybody was actually armor and they had 2 to 3 disruptors per ship. Can't do that anymore. does kind of weaken it. But we did see 2 Bargists, which has been getting banned quite a bit, and we actually have a little graphic about it. Bargists are one of the most picked and winninger ships in the AT. And Mark, can you kind of maybe take a look at this graphic and maybe talk about it a little bit, because it's such an interesting spaceship in the Alliance tournament.
Yeah, the Bargus is just, it does a lot of things for you. It fits into so many kite comps so well. The Bargus has a bonus to missile flight time, and it also has longer points and points and scrams rather, because it's the mortar ship. So you end up with rapid heavies, especially you get such long range on these missiles that can apply so well to cruisers, battle cruisers. And while you are limited by the clip size of the rapid heavies, and this is something we talked about at the break, rapid heavies have a set clip size. I can't remember exactly what it is for rapid heavy 2s, but it's say 25, 30 missiles. Once you've run through that, you don't reload nearly as quickly as you would with a normal weapon system. It takes about a minute or so, 30 seconds to a minute or so to reload, and then you can fire again. So when we talk about people firing rapid heavies, we talk about clipping. How can you kill something in a clip? And if you can't kill something in a clip, you're in a tough spot. But Bargus do so much damage. They're so fast. They have a lot of EHP. People have run 2-3 Bargus setups before, and you can pretty without too much trouble clip most things in the game. They still need a lot of application. They still need webs from ships like the Hyena. You still need paints in a lot of cases for going after smaller targets. But they are extremely strong in the right hands, and a lot of teams we saw. I mean, teams that were up on that list, Volta, Hydra, and these are teams that are perennial, top 10, top 5 teams in the tournament. So it is not a surprise to me that they are just one of those kind of S tier ships in this tournament.
It definitely is an S tier ship. We have been seeing it being banned quite a bit. Obviously, it was not banned in that match, and they got taken. However, that match is over, and we are about to see Boundary Experts versus Fraternity Dot. And spoiler alert, we will not be seeing Bargist because Fraternity banned the Bargist. So Boundary Experts banned the Abaddon and the Celestis. We've been kind of seeing a lot of Abaddon bans, but that's one of the first Celestis bans we've seen. And then we have Fraternity banning the Bargist and the Scimitar. So moderator, let's walk through these bans a little bit here.
Yeah, so Abaddon, we've seen it used, as you've mentioned earlier, in a lot of heavy armor comps. It has a lot of tank, a lot of damage for the points it brings. Celestis, basically, essentially, the cruiser version of the Maulus and the carries. It just has a lot more mid slots and, can fit that many more damps. Not very tanky, but if you can't lock it, you can't hit it. Fraternity banning the Bargist and the Scimitar really signals to me that they do not want to fly against a kite comp. Bargist you would definitely use in a kite comp. Scimitar, again, used in a lot of kind of these more positional fly killer or shield rush setups that want to really focus on positioning. So both teams kind of signaling what they don't want to deal with.
Absolutely. And Mark, so it's kind of one of those things. So Boundary Experts, I mean, you can tell by their little icon that they are definitely a team that was made to play in the tournament. But we see Fraternity here, and they've performed relatively well in the Alliance tournament over the years. How are you feeling this is going to go down?
It's really interesting to me when you talk about groups the size of groups like Fraternity, groups like Goons, group like P-Horde, because while smaller teams like Boundary Experts are obviously purpose-built for this tournament, they're getting their best guys, they're getting they're reaching out to other groups, finding whoever they can. Groups the size of Frat, you would think just by law of numbers have to have enough competent pilots so they can field a decent team. So while in this case I still think I'm taking Boundary Experts, I would not be surprised. I mean, Mystical Might, he's been stepping for Frat this entire week. So I think maybe smart money is on Boundary Experts here. I don't know. Frat could be the sleeper pick in this one.
And what are you feeling, moderator?
It's going to be hard to call. Seems like a lot of the Frat team has changed over the last couple of years. Boundary Experts, notably, last year did get top 16, so they do have some quality and pedigree on their roster. I think it can be a very competitive match, and I'm eager to see what both teams bring to the field.
That is a very, very neutral way of saying absolutely nothing. So fantastic job there. If you don't actually commit to something, you can't lose, but you also can't win. And the teams are landing here real quickly. Just got to wait until they stop moving a little bit before we can officially switch. So it is a little bit interesting to talk about pedigree, just because a team did really well last year, if they don't have the same pilots, they might not do as good this year. All that being said, both teams are here on grid. They are flying quite differently, which is super exciting. And I think we're just going to head straight to the arena right here. It looks like it is about time. So we're going to hand this off to our fantastic commentary pair.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting match. We have quite the matchup here. Another max threat projection comp run here by Fraternity, except this time the modification of a Rodiva, the first time we've seen that here. Fear, what do we have on the other side?
I'm still calling it Pseudodad. On the converse side, it's HML and RLML Shield Kite from Boundary Experts. Claymore, Double Cyclone Fleet Issue, all three of those ships with HMLs. Double Orthrus, I did check. They do have Rapid Lights on those. An Osprey Navy Issue, I believe, also has Rapid Lights and not HMLs. Let me see. Still looking at the hit points. Yeah, these are RLMLs. So yeah, those are RLMLs. So this is really interesting to see, because when you have triple RLML plus or quad RLML and you have the Caracal and two Jackdaws doing light missile launchers on your team, that's typically a way to kill low end. But as you see, and the Jackdaw immediately gets taken down. Holy crap. This comp from Fraternity doesn't actually have a whole lot about low end. Really only it carries that these rapid lights will be able to dig into.
Yeah, and it's far from an essential piece of that comp. Unfortunately for Boundary Experts, they're running a lot of shield ships against laser damage and a lot of kite ships against damage projection. Fraternity having no problem reaching out and touching them, about to claim another Orthrus here. They will trade it for their Oracle, but that is overall a pretty good trade for Frat, as they're continuing to lay down the damage, taking out the second Orthrus shortly.
Absolutely demolishing them. And this is the thing, right? These Pseudodad comps, they're just so potent. And when you're up against shield kite comps, every single one of these shield ships, except for the Claymore, is weak to EM damage. And now they're on the Osprey as well. He gets absolutely deleted. And this match is already snowballed right in the way of Fraternity Dot. They're going to lose their Exec Navy of Emily Arata, but they are still going to take down this Jackdaw, the Cyclone Fleet Issue. There just is not a whole lot of damage left in the tank for the side of Boundary Experts, although they still have all three of their HML ships up and running. It's not going to be for long. Xander Audelis in the Cyclone Fleet Issue about to dip into armor himself.
And they've pivoted to now primarying the Rodiva. They realize they're having trouble struggling breaking any kind of tank with their fewer remaining damage ships, so they're going after the logistics of Fraternity, but it's going to be a tall order. The Rodiva is very tanky, and they're about to lose another Jackdaw, followed shortly by the Cyclone Fleet Issue of Xander Audelis, as the DPS from the Fraternity team is steady and inescapable. They are able to project just as far as these missiles are able to fly, but the damage is hitting harder.
Yeah, just two rapid light ships remaining to deal with this Carries, who has been able to damp out both those rapid light ships in the Navy Osprey and the Caracal, so he's able to stay alive for the time being. They actually stopped shooting the Cyclone Fleet Issue as it got into armor, and they're swapping back around to this Osprey Navy Issue. They want to try to make sure their Carries stays alive. And at the moment, with the Rodiva just being able to rep back up all on his own with his local rep, it looks like Fraternity have this match pretty much in the bag.
Yep, there's a big cloud of drones following that Osprey Navy around. He is getting absolutely brutalized. Finally goes down. The Cyclone Fleet looks like it pulled range pretty close to the boundary, ironically, but expertly avoided crossing the line into the edge of glory, and is now coming back to re-engage the fight with a little bit of shields left from some natural regen. Unfortunately, his partner, the other Cyclone Fleet, is about to drop very quickly. He is not so well positioned, and his armor is getting absolutely chunked right now as his ASB struggles to keep up. He's about to go down, and this really does seal the deal here for Fraternity. They're very much in the driver's seat. The Rodiva is sitting comfortably at mid-armor, and they haven't even continued to shoot it. They're now trying to pivot to kill the Carries. but it's going to be a dicey proposition. And as we said at the start of this fight, even if it goes down, does not present a serious threat to Fraternity, who can now comfortably tank the damage even without the damps.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting, right? Last year we actually saw a lot of HML kite setups, but those HML kite setups were shield chips fit with damps in their mids and then armor tanked. This year, since you can't actually fit damps on a ship that aren't bonus to it, HML Kite, I think, just lost a lot of its viability because you can't armor tank the ships and you can't fit damps on them. So now we see in this kind of like, well, pseudo-dad armor battlecruiser cruiser setup versus, you know, more traditional HML and RML shield kite, it just doesn't work because just the damage isn't there and you're being shot at right in your holes with lasers, and then obviously you're still getting quite a bit of thermal damage out of blasters and, or I should say, railguns as well. There was a boundary though. Casimir Exusai boundaried his I believe, yeah, Brutix Navy issue. So not as clean from Fraternity as they would have liked. They still lose 3 ships when it's all said and done, but still very well played for them and kind of showing how the meta has changed between last year and this
Alexander is going for it. He's going for a micro jump play straight up. He's got momentum. Let's see how far he goes.
Not scrammed. We'll see.
Let's go.
Nope. Got deleted before he could jump out. That's unfortunate.
No, that wreck is outside the arena. He made it.
176. You're right. I'm bad.
Absolutely excellent match.
We're going to send this back to the desk to break that down and bring us on the next one. We'll see you right after this.
Guys, stop being casual. They're really bad. We should not lose anybody to this. Warp off. Warp off. Take the fleet warp. Everybody warp off. This is really, really bad execution. I'm very disappointed.
Another great haul back from Amar. Damn, I'm thirsty. That hits the spot.
Yeah, we actually lost a bet as CCP collectively, so that's why that Alliance logo is in the game. Of course, you could change your alliance by leaving, but that would be kind of a jerk move. Like, oh, you don't like it? Just leave.
This logo sucks. I'm gonna go join.
The medium gun dominance continues with Fraternity just absolutely shellacking boundary experts there. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I stole it from CCP Overload.
Yeah, I like it.
Trying to emulate him a little bit, right? So very, very, very powerful. Moderator, like that was brutal. They got wrecked. Like, tell us about it.
Oh no.
He did it to himself.
He did it to himself.
Well, he knew there was going to be, some point in the year where I would forget to unmute. They do call me Muterator for a reason. I'm glad it was now rather than, not later. However, to Bart's point, the reason that we saw this happen is that in prior years, what you would do is you would take these jackdaws, you would take a lot of your shield chips, and you would fit tracking disruption, right? So you would say, hey, we might not do as much damage as these gun setups, but what we can do is we can fit some disruption. It might not be bonused, but it will really mitigate the ability for you to hit us while we kite. That's not in this year's tournament rule set. So it might be early to say this, but it feels like very much, though, the HML kite setup just really is not viable in Alliance Tournament 19. Given the rule changes. I mean, that happens every, season. Rules change, comps come in and out of favor depending on what CCP sides is going to be, pointed and what the ship fitting restrictions are. And I don't know if this is a viable setup anymore.
Oh, that's fair. I've been sort of thinking the same thing, but not 100% sure on that yet because it is the feeders and crazy things happen. Real quick though, I would actually like to bring up something else here. So the HML kite setup, a lot of it is based around these very kitey fast ships not getting hit. And something that we've been seeing quite a lot of is these like medium guns being backed up by target painters. So Mark, let's kind of talk about that, because target painters are one of those things that you maybe see a little bit of on TQ, but not quite as important as it is in the AT. So target painters, how do they work?
Yeah, well, listen, Bart. Here's the God's honest truth. Sometimes in life and in the AT, sometimes you have small ship, and your guns are only good against big ship, right? So what you do, this is very important. Listen to this. So what you do is you use a little laser, and you okay, and you fire the laser at the other ship. Now this laser doesn't do any damage, Bart. Important to know. Laser does not do any damage, but what it does is it takes the small ship and makes it seem as if it's a big ship. Now, for the weapons, the weapon application, much better against the big ship, right? So, especially in the AT, where you have a lot of small ship, you have frigate, you have carries, you have Deacon and Thalia, you have the little ships, okay, and then you have, I'm a Margus, I have a rapid heavy missile launcher. Right. Well, the rapid heavies aren't going to apply to any of this stuff. Okay. Unless you have one of these ships that have a target painter, better if it's bonused, that apply to, they use their laser, they go, right. And the ship all of a sudden seems huge, right? Now you can apply fully, you can put more damage on. And this is lots of applications. If you're not using these on TQ, I don't know what to tell you. You're doing it wrong. That's just not good. Right. I myself personally I will not undock without at least 6 target painters, just because I want to make sure that everything that I shoot, big or small, look, I am an equal opportunity missile application enjoyer. That's all it is. And I want my stuff to apply evenly. So that's why the target painter is so good. And I'm sure it applied in that last match too. So I was just cooking up that explanation for like the last 20 minutes. So go ahead, Bart. Back to you.
That was, what, we couldn't have said that better ourselves.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, somebody did ask in Twitch chat, what's more effective, a target painter or a web? Both are effective, but obviously, as per the tracking graph, it does depend. The webs are helpful for some stuff, but the target painters are helpful all the time.
Really,
you want both.
Yeah, you do want both. Yeah, for sure.
Something else we've been seeing a ton, and we saw it there, is this Executor Navy ship, and it used to not really be used that much, but that's kind of changed recently, and we do have a fantastic little graphic about it that, moderator, once you take a look at this graphic, you will notice that something's changed about it. It's being used a little bit more.
Oh.
Yeah, so once upon a time, the Executor Navy issue used to be pretty god-awful. And then CCP decided to change its stats, gave it a little bit more projection, gave it a little bit more fitting as well in tank, and all of a sudden, oh shit, it's like really good. And then we get into a Galente tournament, which means it cost 1 less points, and it's like, oh wow, now it's like really, really good. We should bring it. We should bring not just one of them, we should bring like 2 of them. So that's Alliance Tournament 18, kind of the year when it got buffed from I believe AT 16. I don't even know if it even got used in 17. So there you go. That's how good it is now. It's even gooder because, like my colleague said, it gets the paints on it, and those medium guns do the tracky, and then blappy. So that's why people bring it.
Absolutely. Well spoken, Mod. Thank you.
Yeah, and we do see the ship balance changes. I mean, look at that. So not used gets changed by a little bit, and suddenly it becomes one of the most used ships in the game. And we've been seeing it a ton here too. I think it's actually been being banned quite a bit too. Very, very high damage, like several hundred, up 600 to 900 DPS with railguns, which is crazy. Usually you see that out of a neutron blasters and things like that. So pretty exciting. Very, very good ship. We've seen it twice in a row now, actually. These medium guns teams still dominant, like completely so. Mark, medium guns, is this the way? Is this the meta, like Mod seems to think it might be?
As a co-host of the Meta Show, one might say that I'm qualified to talk about what is and is not meta. However, in this case, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think just medium guns strike a happy balance, right, between things that are small, right, and things that are big. And especially with some of these laser comps, these laser comps, if teams aren't patching it properly, they're shooting into an EM hole in a lot of these cases. You would hope God that teams would patch that, but it is the feeders. But combined with the tracking of medium lasers compared to large lasers, it's a happy balance. And in the feeders, I think you can get by with just a happy balance. Now, are we going to see that same kind of thing in the actual tournament? Hard to say, because teams in the actual tournament, they're taking, because there's more on the line, right? They're gonna take it more seriously. They're gonna put more thought into it. So I like medium guns. As a lot of these 4 battlecruiser setups are so cool. You might not have seen these in years past, but I don't know if we're going to see this carried on into the main tournament. I kind of hope we do, because I love these setups, but we'll see.
No, they are quite good. The damage application's been crazy. We've been seeing teams get lose a ship in the first 5 seconds, which you don't want to start off your match like that. But all that being said, we have another match coming up. We actually have 4 more matches coming up, which is super duper exciting. We have Laserhawks, which I believe they're wormholers. I think that they've been wormholers for a very long time. And we have I Could Do Better. Mod, do you know who I Could Do Better is?
I have, honest to God, no idea who they are.
Well, I do like that they are managing their own expectations. Laserhawks had a single tournament where they actually did quite good. I believe that they got 4th or 3rd place in it, though a certain analyst has, for years and years and years, said that it's because they got lucky. It's me. I was the one who said that. Just putting that out there. Obviously, that was years ago, and tournament pedigree is a thing, but also sometimes it's not a thing. It has been, almost 9 years now for some of these teams.
Long time.
But you probably know something about Laserhawks, right, Mark? You're supposed to be the wormhole expert, and I believe they are wormholers.
I do know Hawks. I'll tell you, this is actually a tough match for me, because both these teams are actually wormholers. I Could Do Better is actually the alliance name of a corporation called Hole Punchers. They've got a great logo. It's a wormhole with a fist coming out of it. Pretty great. And they, that team is, I haven't seen a lot of them. I honestly haven't seen a lot of Hawks either. I don't really watch too many scrims. I try and do normal human things in my day to day, and then retreat into my Eve persona at night. So I don't see a lot of the daily scrim stuff. But yeah, I mean, both these teams, I'm expecting, again, it's the feeders. Who knows how this is going to play out? Hawks certainly has, a wealth of pilots who've been playing the game for a long time. I maybe can't say tournament pedigree, Bart, to your point, but I don't know. Listen, that's what makes the feeders so exciting, right? Is that you could have anything can happen. You could have any of these teams come in here, rock up. Hell, just to Frat rocked up and did their dirty business, and everyone was like, "Oh, so impressive! Oh, the channel
Frat did fantastic."
Yeah,
and on tournament pedigree too, like to a degree, even if you haven't done super fantastic, just playing in a tournament gives you an advantage over other people. So, but we do actually have the bans, so we can maybe use that to predict what we're going to see here. And what we have is Laserhawks banning the Blackbird and the Executor Navy issue. So there's another Blackbird ban, and I Could Do Better is banning the Bargest and the Sleipnir. So Mod, anything really stand out to you here?
So Laserhawks is saying, I really, really hate ECCM, or ECM rather. Blackbird is probably one of the more point-effective ECM ships. Banning out the Exec Navy because, we were just talking about how good of a ship it is for the point value. I Could Do Better, deciding they really don't want to deal with that kind of shield kite Bargest, and the Sleipnir kind of hits at both long-range shield kite setups, but it also hits at a shield rush setup. It can be used in place of, the Nighthawk in those setups as well. So kind of covering a little bit of both bases there.
Absolutely. And we all start seeing that fantastic Alliance logo from I Could Do Better there. I'm actually glad that popped out and we got to see it. Sleipnir's very, very good ships. We have been seeing people do a lot of this shield Nighthawk kite or shield Nighthawk rush, but personally, I like Sleipnir's more. I just understand that it's a little bit more difficult of a ship to fly because tracking is in fact a thing. All that being said, these teams will be entering the arena in the next minute or so. So let's get a quick prediction here. Moderator, who are you feeling between these two teams?
Based on the bans we see, I think I'm going to go with Laserhawks.
Nice, simple, short, succinct. Mark Resurrectus, what about you?
You know, in many ways, the wormholer people are my children, and I can never pick a favorite of my children. But in this case, I am going to pick Laserhawks.
Gotcha. You can never pick a favorite, but it was
But
very easy for you to pick a favorite.
But
here.
I am going to pick
Excellent.
Laserhawks.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling Laserhawks too. They've been around a while. They have a lot of people that have at least gotten a couple rounds of the tournament, and maybe this is their year. They can make the repeat, come back in and smash out that third place again or something. But first, they have to get through the feeders, and to get through the feeders, they have to beat Hole Punchers, also known as I Could Do Better. And we are going to actually send it off to our wonderful commentary pair because both teams have entered the arena.
G'day, mates. Welcome to the arena. I feel like we've entered the wrong year because we're seeing a comp from the most previous AT. We're seeing the old Nighthawk Rush coming back, warping in at 0 even. So this is the full old school Nighthawk Rush. What are you thinking about this one, Jin?
Yeah, those are definitely 8 missiles on those Nighthawks, so they are definitely ham equipped. This is going to be a lot of control going in, but they are going to be facing an absolute wall of control in return here from the Hole Punchers team, who have brought 2 different new bonus chips with that Armageddon Navy and that Balgon. They're going to need to put those in front of everything and try and use them to turn off the rush from their opponents, but they're not going to be able to turn off the guns. This is the good thing about the ham rush. If you get on top of something, it's going to die.
Exactly that. All these ships can just keep firing even while being neutered as well. The only real weak spot is that these Lokis are basically the tackle. Their webs are helping these hams apply. So if they get neutered out, they could maybe get some of the ships away. But of course, there are 3 very slow battleships at the front of this as the rush begins. And here they go already.
Yeah, this is one of those matches where you really wish you could look at all these fits, because whether or not those Lokis have a cap booster is going to determine so much about how the late game of this match plays out. The side fleet issue, something we saw quite a lot in the last tournament because it was points discounted, taking some DPS there, but it's surprisingly slow, actually.
Getting Navy first, cool. Honestly, I'd probably agree with that. It's probably the most damage and the least tank in comparison to the other ships. So kill that off and maybe remove a lot of DPS as their side fleet is being pounded. They've only got a burst and a scalpel for tank, but all they're going to do is outlast. Just kill as much as you can before you die. That side fleet is going into armor. He's going to die real quick.
Oh my lord, look at the attack bars on both teams just going nuts down there. Both teams are putting out thousands and thousands of DPS here. It's just going to be a pure race. We can see the Nighthawk is now the primary from the Hole Punchers team. That's good. They're trying to take off one of those 1,300 DPS battle cruisers, but they're going to be losing their main DPS in that Armageddon Navy issue as compensation.
Yeah, they've got so much control in this comp with the Balgorn and also a lot of tank in the Abaddon, but the Geddon Navy is kind of like the real core of DPS. They've also got Vexen Navy as well, which is also pretty nice DPS. They're killing a Stabber fleet, which is honestly the weakest ship there, best DPS, good target to kill. But there goes the Geddon Navy, and already that's going to start hurting real bad.
I'm not 100% sure what's going on here from the Hole Punchers team, because they're splitting their DPS across all 3 of the main DPS threats here from Laserhawks. You've got about a third of the shield DPS, third shield HP damage on all 3 of those ships. If they have focused on one of them would be dead and they'd be taking a lot less damage right now.
Exactly. I also saw a bunch of ECM drones being put onto the burst, of all things. Not exactly what I was expecting to see there. And there's also some interesting stuff going around in the backline as well. We got a Nighthawk being held down actually by a Spitball. I think that Spitball might have got him actually out of range.
Yeah, he's going to be able to clear his own tackle potentially here, though.
Yeah, that Spitball is doing his absolute best. Honestly, the longer he holds that Nighthawk away from the actual main fight, that could potentially flip things over, as one of the Nighthawks actually is going into about 30% shield. So this is just chaos. I'm loving this. This is beautiful.
I actually want to give a kind of a shout out to the Hole Punchers crew here. Their tackle is doing really, really well and just spreading out this rush now from Laserhawks. You can see that the damage is almost stopped on that Balgorn because nothing is near it. And because of that, they're going to have to choose something else to go onto here, probably Laserhawks, because they can't concentrate their DPS down onto a target.
The interesting thing as well, they do have the 2 Lokis, which are basically their control. If the Lokis decide to, they could come back and just pretty much web the living hell out of the Spitball and kill it in seconds. But they're like, no, we're going to keep on the Balgorn. Which, I mean, could be seen as a good idea. It could be seen as a bad idea. I'm not in their shoes. I can't exactly tell. But it's really hard to make that call. But see, Nighthawk now going back to go into armor. That is not good. That's a lot of DPS removed.
Oh, sorry, I just disconnected. But the
that Nighthawk is going into Hull now. They actually did kill the Sipple off, so Sipple's now gone. The Nighthawk is now free. But I think that was too late. Remember, no, they actually killed one of the Logis as well. That might have just been too late. They've gotten rid of the one of the Nighthawks as that other Nighthawk gets free, which pretty much puts them in the exact same position they were a moment ago. This is going to go very well towards Hull Punch's way, I think, at this point. Unless that Balgon suddenly pops, which is possible.
It is totally possible. It is sitting there very, very low, just only at 10% armor there. Once it gets into those hull points, they will evaporate. But like I said, he's just so far away. Those missiles must just barely be hitting. You almost wish one of his teammates could just bump him further away.
Yep. Well, the Nighthawk is now well within range now, so that Balgon is going to die. And what ship are they going for next? Looks like they're going for a Loki. Yeah, that's fair enough. I can go see for that as well. Also, quick note as well is that one of the Hull Puncher's Logis, I believe, double check. Yeah, one of the deacons did go down, which there's only a single deacon, which is now being shot by the Jackdaw at one Sipple, I believe. So that's going to be the last bit of Logi left. But then you've got some pretty tanky ships left behind. Vex and Navy, self-rep is amazing. Abaddon is just a big old ball of EHP. But it's honestly, I'm starting to wonder which way it's going to go now.
Yeah, it does feel like Laserhawks is clawing their way back into this now with the bow going down. They're taking off those logistics frigates, and it just doesn't seem like those newts have really been able to do anything to blunt this Laserhawks advance. They've finally picked off all these frigates, and they're going to start coalescing now into this backline.
And the key as well is also that their Logifrigs are still alive, which means the longer this is going, the better it is for them, because they're killing off DPS, and their Logifrigs are starting to keep their ships alive. You see that Loki of Vinateri? He's just been chilling 56% shields. Meanwhile, the Super's now being shot. I bet you he'll come up to full as well. This is these Logifrigs coming in where it matters the most and just keeping this team alive. And they've managed to, surprisingly enough, blunt the opposing team in a rush comp.
Yeah, and we see the VNI going down there, and that's so crucial. That VNI was full newt fit, so it would have been able to sit on top of that scalpel if it had gotten free and just turn off the final remaining bits of reps for this Laserhawks team. With that down and this Abaddon sitting in about half armor, it's going to take a miracle now for Hull Punchers to come back into this. It seemed like they were in a dominant position earlier in the match, and they just weren't able to capitalize on it.
I don't think there's a miracle on the planet that can really get this back, unfortunately. Even you can even consider the reactive of the Abaddon maybe doing well against the Nighthawk. Problem is there's two Lokis that can shoot the rainbow at you, which you can see by the beautiful new explosions. They are doing exactly that. I think I'm seeing some EM explosions. I see some kinetic. I see some, I think that's thermal as well. So this reactive, even if you try to play off of that off your ship, is not enough. And yeah, I think it's already over. There's nothing they can do, unfortunately. But they did play it rather well. They managed to screen a lot of ships off at the right times. Just wasn't quite enough.
Yeah, it was a nice little back and forth. I think Hull Punchers are going to have at least a good shot in the lower bracket here. This setup it seems relatively well crafted, and they executed really well on the tackle side. I think they just needed to kind of get things together on the target calling. If they'd have focused down those Lokis or Nighthawks, just slapped them out earlier on in the match rather than splitting between all three of them, it could have been a great late game for them, especially with that VNI potentially being able to run free.
I think it was one of the key mistakes throughout the match by the looks of it. You saw a few times that damage was being spread across 3 or 4 different of the ships of the opposing team. And if they maybe focused that little extra bit of DPS, they could have busted through a ship a lot earlier, potentially swung the DPS race on their side. But there's good fights and locals. It was a very well-flown match from both teams. And yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? Well done.
Yeah, a bit of a redemption here for Laserhawks. They haven't done particularly well in the last couple of tournaments. In fact, they got knocked out by Odin's Call in 8018. So it'll be lovely to see them in the main tournament this year. Hopefully they can reclaim some of their former glory of their 4th place run. But anyway, with that, let's hand it back to the studio and find out about the matches to come.
Connected. Channel switched.
Well, it would have been
easy fight, right? But guess what, dude? I'm not seeing and people can't get their shit together!
Crush our enemies. Your dams are completely damped out.
Crush. I'm damped out. I'm damped out.
Get on that campus, boys.
Eat your reps.
Yeah.
Everything down.
I've not been able to look a single thing all game.
I'm jammed.
Laserhawk successfully shield rushes I Could Do Better, showing that I Could Do Better's name perhaps is accurate. All that being said, they actually flew really, really well. We saw some pretty awesome screening and other things there. Mod, was this maybe did they get out-comped, or was there maybe something they could have done better?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit conflicted. So on one hand, the Disciple did an excellent job of pinning down that one Laserhawk's Nighthawk in the backline. That's well over 1,000 damage that Disciple just completely neutralized and is basically, hey, you're gonna bring a command ship that's nearly 20 points. Well, my little destroyer is gonna get in the backline and basically ruin your entire day. That said, you also want to, if you're Laserhawks, use your Disciple and your Jackdaw a little bit earlier. They did still win, but one thing that is kind of integral to these shield rushes is you use your small ships, you go and you kill the Friglogy, and then you help kill, the battle ships, the battle cruisers. So that's one of the things that a lot of these teams in the feeders are working through, trying to improve and get better at, and develop their skills as they, get more experience.
Absolutely. And something to say too is that these we don't really see them as much anymore. I think people that were playing in 2013 probably remember the month of the Svipple when it was the best ship in the entire game period, and that was fun. But it is not quite like that. But in the tournament, a rocket Jackdaw, which again you don't see too much in TQ, and an autocannon Svipple, they do about 500 DPS apiece. So what Mod said is they could have run in and basically cleared the back line a little earlier. Obviously, they did end up doing that. We saw both of those deacons get wrecked. Something else we saw, though, it's kind of interesting. Mark, taking multiple ships of the same type makes their points go up. I Could Do Better took 2 deacons. Was that the correct choice?
It is not the correct choice, unfortunately, especially on not that I can say this is a good reason, but on like Tranquility, you might not have 2 players that have a Mar Frigate 5, but this is Thunderdome, and on Thunderdome, you have all the skills. So Deacon Thalia is usually the play here. They are comparable logistics frigates, and you get more points out of it when you do that because your second Deacon is not worth worth more. So the reason they have it like that is so that you can't just endlessly spam the best ships at a discounted price effectively. So variety is good. That's why when you see like the 4 battlecruiser comps we were talking about earlier, you're not seeing 4 absolutions, right? You're seeing a mix of things in there. And yeah, I maybe a bit of a misstep. I mean, they played well otherwise, so I don't think it was horrible, but is what it is.
Yeah, no, they definitely played really well. Something to note is that ever since the surgical strike changes, which was several years ago, these shield rushes have just done absolutely massive damage. And fortunately, I don't have a super fantastic graphic for it. Maybe we will create something 3D rendered and beautiful one day. But if you noticed when those teams came in, there's the defense, the attack, and the control bar. And the attack bar of Laserhawks was almost off the charts. And I believe it's around 10k, so it's like 9 or 10,000 damage is when it like officially hits the edge there. So Laserhawks had something insane, like over 8,000, over 9,000 DPS on their fleet, which is why you saw them able to just completely melt through those really heavy armor tank battleships. So
yeah,
it was pretty awesome. That's probably one of the first shield rushes we've seen that actually like epitomized the overwhelming DPS that a shield rush has. Maybe redeemed the Nighthawk a little bit. I don't know, and at least in my eyes. What do you think, moderator?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to say. The Nighthawk has been generally a ship that we've seen for the last 3 or 4 years, like you said, ever since Surgical Strike. More damage, lower resist means that it's always going to favor these kind of like rush setups that can just break through and punch through when they would have had more difficulty in prior years. But that's been kind of the trend.
Absolutely. Very,
Mm.
very high damage. Very good. Mark, Nighthawks, Sleipnirs, which one's your favorite?
I mean, man, you could go a lot of different ways. I think aesthetically, it's pretty obvious choice is the Sleipnir because Sleipnir just looks. I mean, Sleipnir looks like a sword. It's hard to say no to a sword. Um, I mean, they have different applications in wormhole space right now. You're seeing a lot of groups that will bring firewallers, which are nesters or other kinds of high tank battleships that have a full rack of smart bombs to clear hams in fights. I know that happens other places in space too, but it happens a lot in wormhole space right now. So, that's just one of those things where it's different application for different environment, right? I think the Nighthawk is probably my most used of the two, just because it has it applies more in more engagements. But man, oh man, I do love that Sleipnir.
Yeah, it is kind of a good point that different locations, different applications. We are in the tournament. You are limited to 10 ships, and there's points on it. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you'll see people be like, "Well, why did they bring that?" And it's like, because you can't bring 15 Feroxes and 4 Basilisks.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you have to
yeah.
actually do interesting things, which is super fun and
I
crazy.
agree.
All that being said, that match is over, and we will be having OnlyCows versus Pandemic Horde. Pandemic Horde. Um, kind of hasn't really done particularly well in the tournament, which sort of brings back what was it that you said that some of these giant groups, like surely they'd be able to find 10 good players.
Yeah, I
But
mean, law of averages, right?
yeah, but like at this point, Pandemic Horde's a pretty dang good alliance. Like it's not like 6 years ago where it's like, ooh, it's the newbie alliance. Like they're
Mhm.
one of the powerhouses in the game, and I think that they've actually absorbed a fair amount of players from all over. So, looking at that, moderator is Pandemic Horde. Like, do you think this is their year? Are they going to be a great AT team?
I think they actually were a decent team last year, and I think we've seen good things from them. I believe it was in the feeders, if I recall correctly, last year. Um, they had the unfortunate luck of going up against Volta in the second round of the AT, and they actually got a fair number of kills. It wasn't like 100-0 dunk. They actually, stood their ground and took blood. Then they got knocked down and played Dark Side, so they lost to like two of the best teams in the entire tournament that have been good for forever. So unlucky there. I think that they're a solid roster, and maybe deserve a little bit more respect than people have given them.
That is absolutely fair, and that is a good point that maybe they didn't perform because they went up against the second place team and the third place team. So, you know, that is totally fair. You can get a little bit unlucky every once in a while. But it is what it is. OnlyCows, not 100% sure who they are, but they seem to have a massive amount of Twitch following. I don't know if people
Mhm.
just like their name or if they just like typing moose in Twitch chat. Somebody said that they were in C, but
Yeah, I saw
I'm
it in
not
C too.
100% sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
we could guess. Another alliance with a long history in EVE Online has not done particularly well in tournaments recently, but again, pedigree is pedigree. Let's look at the bans real quick and just talk about them for a second here. So, OnlyCows has banned out the Executor Navy issue and the Pontifex, which is a ban we haven't really seen a huge amount of, with Pandemic Horde choosing to ban out the Leshak and the Armageddon Navy issue. Uh, Mark, that's kind of a little bit different. We haven't seen these bans.
Interesting. That Leshak ban, I don't really think I understand it. The Leshak is great in certain, we've talked about this. We talked about it a lot last week too, about how the Leshak in the right hands can be really dangerous because of that spool, because of just how much raw damage you can get out of it. I don't know if that's the right choice here. The Armageddon Navy is very strong. I just feel like there are other better application plays out there.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I'm kind of in the same boat on that. The Geta Navy, we've been seeing it used a lot, but we've been seeing it lose a lot.
Yeah.
Moderator, how are you feeling about these?
Yeah, so Leshak, I just don't feel like it's that great of a ship this year, frankly. Get a Navy issue. It has some viability, but I don't know if it's like a ship I want to hard ban. Maybe they saw something in scrims that they hate those heavy armor.
Mhm.
And then we saw the Pontifex ban, which is really kind of just a question mark for me. There's so many ways that you can bring armor links to the grid that I just don't think it's a valuable ban. There's so many better things you can do with that slot.
Agree.
Yeah, that is definitely fair, especially with this very battlecruiser heavy setup that we've been seeing used to great effect. Banning out the Pontifex doesn't really do as much damage as maybe it would have done in the previous years. So definitely some interesting things. But hey, maybe they're trying to prevent us from being able to predict what they're going to bring, or maybe they're trying to mess with Twitch chat, so Twitch chat cannot get their bets off. Who knows? I do see that the teams are landing here, though. So let's get a quick round of predictions. Mark, Pandemic Horde versus OnlyCows. Who do you think is going to win here?
Man, my heart says to post this cow if Horde will throw in the towel, but my need to be elected next year says Pandemic Horde. Plus, I think Horde will. I feel like Horde is pretty strong. I pick Horde.
Once again, politics gets in the way of sportsmanship.
What are you gonna
Moderator,
do?
which one are you thinking here?
I'm gonna go with Horde. I'm gonna raise the horn.
Oh, okay. I guess we got people that are fans of the blob. That's fine. That's all good. The teams are landing right here, so as they do so, I'm going to be contrarian and put my extremely low amount of points on OnlyCows, and we are going to hand it off to our wonderful commentators to see who wins this match.
Welcome back to the arena. My name is Fearvana, joined by Alexeb Card, and on the red side we have OnlyCows, and we see a comp that won the AT last year. It is a variant of the Hydra Reloaded / Truth Honor Light B-War comp, dual Blackbird plus Barghest plus a bunch of miscellaneous support low end and E-War low end. They have a Sentinel Arbitrator selects this. I'm excited to see how this works because this is a high execution comp that won the AT last year for Hydra Reloaded. Meanwhile, what have the blue side and Pandemic Horde brought?
Pandemic Horde have brought an armor control setup with a Stork, presumably for extra links because of the Pontifex ban, trying to get that Blackbird and Hyena to have their maximum ECM effectiveness. Likely the Curse as well. But unfortunately, there's no beef in that, there's no bull in that only count setup. They're bringing the beef, and we're about to kick it off right now.
Yeah, attack bar is relatively similar. Defense bars, you see quite a bit more active repping power on the blue side of this for Pandemic Horde, as this is a Guardian versus an Oniros, but mainly that just means that there are more active repping modules on the side of Pandemic Horde. Damage going towards the low end of both of these teams, as this is really kind of the linchpin for both comps. There's a lot of E-War. Dindil in the Hyena being taken down right now a little bit. I want to take a look at Electra Shock in the Strogger. He's going to be he or she or they is going to be the kind of most important member of, as the Confessor absolutely gets deleted, of this OnlyCows team for disabling the low end of Pandemic Horde.
It looks like the OnlyCows EOS has offered himself up as a sacrifice for the Vindicator. Everyone else trying to steer clear of the Vindicator's 90% webs, as the OnlyCows Draugr has failed to do so and is dropping rather quickly.
Yeah, this is really important for them. If they lose the Strogger, they'll lose their ability to kill the low end, as they really only have high end damage in this Barghest and this EOS. From this comp. As I mentioned, it's a higher difficulty to execute comp with the double Blackbird. The jams currently being spread along this Vindicator, this Cursed, and the enemy Blackbird, which is also going to be pretty important as well, because we can't see if the jams actually land. We can just see who the jam attempts are being made towards, but the split DPS is a very important part of dual Blackbird comps, and right now they're actually able to keep the Strogger from going down with successful jams landing, as conversely, this Barghest and EOS are working on the Curse.
Yeah, and that Curse is dropping pretty deep into armor. The armor Curse, not as tough as you'd hope it to be for an Amar ship. It has a low number of low slots, and it's currently getting chewed through right now. Meanwhile, Electroshock hanging in there. Hopefully some of those Vindicator shots are just grazing him. Otherwise, he will be dropping very quickly.
Yeah, just staying alive right now, being webbed by this Vindicator, but conversely, keeping the Vindicator pulled down right now. The Vindicator, actually, he's not being held down, but the Arbitrator is actually doing a lot of work right now. We see these tracking disruptors on the Vindicator and Abba actually doing a whole lot of work, while this Curse, meanwhile, he's got newts out, but he hasn't actually been able to make tracking disruption work towards the side of OnlyCows quite yet. Everyone's still full armor, but now the Sentinel Twunk Sloth absolutely getting melted right now.
Ooh, that could be a crucial loss. They've lost newts and they've lost critically some tracking disruption from there, which could be what was helping to keep that Draugr alive. But it looks like they may trade back for it with this Maulus here, or potentially the Hyena. Both of them taking a pretty severe amount of damage for such low hit point ships. This is a very back and forth match, despite not a lot of blood so far. It's riding on a knife's edge. This Draugr going down, it's still the focus. If that does go down, I agree with you. It could be huge. It's their low end damage. It's links. It's a pretty sizable amount of points as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage. It's a lot of links, but he's still maintaining his composure and maintaining their ability to do what they need to do right now, and that is just stay alive. Meanwhile, this Oneros of Hoyer Valeri seems to be the focus of at least the high end from the side of OnlyCows. They haven't quite killed anything with their high end yet, but as I said that, the Hyena finally in structure and will go down. Massive rep comes in from that Oneros just in the nick of time.
Oh, clutch play from the Oneros. Both logistics pilots doing a great job keeping their teams alive. Unfortunately, Anthony Parker's Arbitrator, he's dipping into low armor. Can the Guardian respond with a similarly buff save here? It's teetering back and forth. Meanwhile, more of the low end taking fire on Pandemic Horde side. Oh, this is so close.
Just under 6 minutes remaining in the match right now, and thus far the only ships that have died are a Sentinel and a Confessor. Really could go either way, but Electroshock all the way down into structure right now. These split reps not going to be able to keep both these ships alive. I would have to imagine the Draugr falls, and that is links and all the low-end DPS off the table for OnlyCows.
Oh man, that Guardian Pal was forced to make a very difficult decision. He tried to have the best of both worlds, but wasn't able to switch the reps back fast enough. They might trade back for a Hyena here, which is in high armor but sitting in low structure from earlier damage. But that was a pretty crucial loss for OnlyCows. They're down quite a bit at this point. They still definitely have a way back in this match, and there's plenty of support in the chat from all the Brovines out there, but they're really facing an uphill battle.
They finally take down the Hyena, and importantly, this Curse also being taken down very quickly. The Oneros appears to be jammed out right now. Actually, no jams were on him. So instead, the Oneros just not able to keep the Curse up, and actually that gives the lead ever so slightly over to OnlyCows. They're now 2 points up as they've traded 3 ships for 2.
Oh, things are probably going to stabilize a little bit, as I think Pandemic Horde probably has to sort out what they need to be targeting. They want to take down these Blackbirds, but they're still going to be tough while both of them are up and the Guardian is alive. Now that the low end of OnlyCows is fully gone, they just have these electronic warfare cruisers. They're not the tankiest, but they're not exactly weak either, especially if Pandemic Horde can't really focus their damage. Meanwhile, OnlyCows is trying to find a way back into this match by killing some of the E-War on Pandemic Horde side to allow them to better apply to that Oneros. They're focusing down on the Maulus and seemingly splitting fire to the Blackbird now, trying to make their Oneros decide who he's going to keep alive. I think the Blackbird is by far the easier target. Both Blackbirds on both teams now dipping deep into armor. This is going to be a race for electronic warfare. If either one of these goes down, it is going to be a huge swing for the other team.
But importantly, from OnlyCows, they have a double Blackbird setup, so one can jam the ships that are targeting the other off of his buddy, and we're actually seeing that right now as Torbella able to hold right now. Bertok Francis, though, this Oneros piloting of Hoyer Valeri has been absolutely crucial in this match, has kept his low end alive quite effectively, but now the Skybreaker of Jatzia is going down pretty low and is getting caught by the Oneros once again.
The Skybreaker, not known for its armor tank, but is managing to hang in there. Meanwhile, Florbella's Blackbird dipping into low armor. The stakes could not be higher for this Guardian. He needs to keep that ship up.
Now. He's in structure now. They need to get the gems from Mold, but they don't get it. Oh, and the ECM just not working out in favor of OnlyCows right now. They still have a lot of E-War control in 3 E-War cruisers at the moment, but with their lack of DPS, only having this Barghest and this Eos, and they're running after a Skybreaker, which is a very, very tanky frigate. It's not looking great for them as we approach the 2:30 mark remaining in the match.
Yeah, I feel like they're having trouble breaking anything in the Horde team. That job is only going to get harder now with half their Blackbird force gone. They still have the Celestis, still have the Arbitrator, but it's not going to be enough.
Hoyer Valeri actually being taken down to half armor. if they're able to do this, they might actually be able to turn this match around, because the Aneros is been absolutely massive for Horde, and it looks like he's actually going down pretty effectively. I'm taking a look. He's just painted right now. He's trying to get self-reps out, and they've got rep bots coming in from this Abaddon and this Vindicator, but he's already into structure. Meanwhile, the trade's being made on an Estimo Tharchon's Guardian, and there is more damage on the side of Pandemic Horde to chunk through this Guardian, as Hoyer Valeri, he actually is able to get back up on his armor, bait tanking for all the way down to structure, and he's already back up to 1/3 armor, make that half armor, and it looks like that will be the match. The Guardian falls, and Pandemic Horde are going to manage to advance on to the main tournament up against a variant, once again, of the comp that won the AT last year.
It was a great attempt from God's Army's Bardcast. He maneuvered all the way around to the back end and corralled that Aneros. But unfortunately, they weren't able to hurt it successfully. It just turned right around and stampeded the other direction and managed to pull back all that armor. And now they just have no path forward as their Guardian is down. That the electronic warfare on OnlyCows is not going to be sufficient to keep these guys up. They're going to be leather in the next couple minutes. Although that said, there's only 1 minute remaining, so actually a good chunk of this team may survive. Unfortunately, Pandemic Horde has the points, and they will advance.
Yeah, I mean, OnlyCows, they're going to have to make their way through the rest of the lower bracket. We'll be playing tomorrow. Pandemic Horde, though, making it to the main tournament. They went 1 and 2 in the AT last year, so we'll see how they do this time around. Maybe they'll become prize ship enjoyers. But another thing to note about Horde is that last year their Horde was actually split between 2 teams. Pandemic Horde proper, and then Fancy Pants Alliance, which was the Fancy Pants Corporation in Horde, making their own alliance for Alliance Tournament, and they did for the Anger Games that year. This year, Fancy Pants isn't running their own tournament team, so they have a much larger pool of pilots to choose from, especially AT experienced pilots. So I'm looking forward to see how Horde does with their combined might this year around. GFs have been called in local. The match clock hit 0-0. We're going to send it right back to the desk, and when we return, Jin and Wingnut will bring you Rote, Kapelle, and Shut Up, I'm Trying.
Utterly satisfying.
Pandemic Horde defeats OnlyCows. OnlyCows, cowpun, cowpun, cowpun. Imagine Ithaca Hawk said something clever there. Very, very good match. Actually, fantastic match. I think that it is important to note that while Pandemic Horde won that, OnlyCows actually played fantastic. Pandemic Horde played fantastic.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about last year's tournament in there and certain comps. A moderator kind of explain what the casters were getting at there.
Yeah, so what they were getting at is that both teams actually brought versions or essentially copies of what we saw Hydra Reloaded bring, both deep into the best out of 3s and in the best out of 5 grand final match. And the comps that Hydra flew that year in that best out of 5 require very, very high player and pilot skill coordination, as well as player skill. So not only do you have to position well, you have to fly your ship well, you also have to communicate effectively to your teammates what you're doing if you've been jammed, what's going on. And both teams actually did a very, very good job of that. I think despite the fact that OnlyCows lost, that they're a terror in the lower bracket.
Yep, absolutely. Mark, why did OnlyCows have trouble sort of sealing the deal here?
They were up against it's a difficult position, and Wingnut actually mentioned it in the comments. Let me see if I can pull up his comments real quick, because they're really, really astute. Effectively, you're looking at a situation where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Where if you jam the Vendy and you keep your tackle alive, you leave the curse free to just run roughshod over your entire team. But if you jam the curse and you keep your comp mobile, then the Vendy is just going to murder you, right? And the Vendy is extremely strong. I was surprised the Vendy took so long to go after the EOS, because they're basically sitting right on top of each other for such a long time. But I think this is one of those, and I feel like people will be surprised at how long this match went, but this is the ideal, right? I think we can all agree, like, long matches, teams that are fairly evenly matched, running into each other. Not every match needs to be a wipe, and that was a ton of fun to watch. That was really, really enjoyable.
Yeah, it was a very, very, very high tier, high technical difficulty play on both teams. Obviously, we sometimes say it's like, oh, well, Shield Rush is pretty easy. Like, all of these setups are very hard to pilot. Like, none of this is like an easy auto win comp, because if it was, everybody would fly it. But in regards to that, both sides were probably playing some of the harder setups. With OnlyCows, they gambled on flying something very technically difficult, and they almost won with it. But kind of looking at it, moderator, how do you think that setup goes against 8 DPS medium gunships that we've been seeing used so much?
Well, the question is, can you actually jam a lot of those ships out? If you can, you're going to do very well with those 2 Blackbirds. If you can't, you're going to kind of eat shit. And with some of the changes, and this was in effect last year, is you need to make sure that you're cross-jamming ships. Essentially, the way ECM works now is that you can always lock back the ship that is targeting you. And what Bart's kind of getting at is, okay, well, if you kind of jam this out, what if you still have like 4 cruisers that can attack you? And the answer is you still die anyway, even if you land jams. So you need to do a very good job of coordinating those jams while also trying to stay out of 8 very, very angry cruisers and battle cruisers that can project on top of you.
Absolutely. Well, Pandemic Horde did a fantastic job showing very, very good mastery of maybe an older setup, which they did quite well. Very, very powerful. OnlyCows also did a great job. They still have to go through the lower bracket. The stakes have definitely been raised for all of the other teams down there, and hopefully they will be able to go up against the nasty ECM power or whatever else they might be bringing. All that being said, we have another match. We have Rote Kapelle versus Shut Up. I'm trying. Rote Kapelle, pretty famous for being sort of a mid-tier team, but I do believe that their team captain from the last couple of years is actually no longer with them. I believe that Lady Labia has chosen to go to a different team. I think I saw them on White Flag, but I might be mistaken on that one. So Rote's got a little bit. It's going to be a little tough for them this time, I think.
Yeah, some of their captain and some of their better players. So that would be Apathetic Brent, who's been a tournament perennial on Rote Kapelle, and Hydra and Hydra's partners since the last 10 years. Was the captain of the Rote team last year. He has gone with Alice Kate to Hydra's practice partner this year, White Flag. So Rote losing some of their, I would say, more experienced players, and of course their captain is going to hurt a lot. But they still have some fundamentally pretty solid players that can execute at a level that has gotten teams like Rote in top 16, top 12. So they're not completely out of luck having lost some of their players.
True. And let's take a look at the bans here real quick. So we did have Rote banning the Balgorn Vindicator, so that's a little bit of a throwback ban. Both of them have been very powerful ships. I don't know about the Vindicator as much, with Shut Up and Trying banning a Carries and an Exec Navy issue. Mark, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean the shut up I'm trying. Of course, wormholers very wise, have big brains. Made two pretty smart bans here. I think the carries obviously. You're getting a lot of suppression for not a lot of money with the carries. You know, we've seen what those carries comps can do, especially if you're not able to nuke it right out the gate. Those dams can be absolutely oppressive. And of course, we talked earlier. I won't go on any further about the exec navy, about how good the exec navy is. And as for the other bands, I don't know. I'm always kind of hesitant about battleship bans unless there's a reason for it. But you know, I assume Rote knows what they're doing. They have pedigree, you know.
Yes, I would absolutely hope so. And we do have the teams landing right now. Little bit interesting warp ins here, which I will definitely save for the casters to talk about as the team's landing. So let's get real quick predictions here. Moderator, what are you thinking is about to happen?
You know, I'm going to go with Rory Hashino and Rote Kapelle.
Rory Shino and Rote Kapelle. And Mark, how are you feeling about this one?
I think I'm also going to go with Rote Kapelle. Yeah, I'm going to go with Rote.
You're gonna go with Rote. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I feel like we're gonna have to send this over to the commentators because it is about to start before I make my prediction. So I will, kind of cham out on that one.
Hello, everyone, and welcome one last time to the arena. It's myself and Wingnut here to watch this wonderful game between Rote Kapelle and Shut Up, I Am Trying. As you can see, Shut Up, I Am Trying have brought basically the apex possible version of a Nighthawk Rush setup, only that they haven't brought 4 of their pilots, unfortunately. They're running 3 Nighthawks and a Hugin and a Scimitar, so they're going to try and get in and try and put those Nighthawks to use. What have Rote Kapelle brought here for us?
Oh, they brought a triple battleship core, which I am very much a fan of. Mega Navy, Armageddon Navy, and of course the ultra thick Abaddon. They put also a mountain of control on the back line, so I'm liking this a lot. But so Shut Up, I'm trying wormholes. No,
I believe they are, and they do have an absolutely
So-
delightful logo.
is there are the rest of the team cloaked? Is that what's going on here?
I believe they're actually waiting on the other side of that wormhole. You can just see to the right of the camera.
Right.
They're going to be jumping in anytime soon, crashing the hole and making sure that Rote Kapelle have nowhere left to retreat to.
I don't see this going well for them, but at least they've got A+ on the skin game right now as the match goes underway, and the Nighthawks do what Nighthawks do, so they're going to rush in, and honestly, Roach can just sit there and wait if they really wanted to, but they're going in as well. Fair enough.
Yeah,
See that crash just screened off.
the matchup here really is not in Suit's favour either. Maybe if this had been going up against something with a little less DPS, they could have had a hope. But going up against something that's going to apply so well to those Nighthawks is brutal. You know, those things have the signature radius of a small carrier when they're MWDing towards battleships, and as you can see, that caracal isn't long for the world either.
God save the Queen. Yep, that's expected. And they're going for the Abaddon first. Quite honestly, the thickest option on grid. Sure.
I mean, this is the way that you see Shield Rush work. How you want to use a Shield Rush is you identify the most vulnerable core component of your enemy's team, and then you put your DPS onto it, and you hope it dies before all of your big boys die as well.
I think there's a flaw in that idea. The most vulnerable, Abaddon. Pick one. And look at also just a quick note as well. Look at the absolute wave of rep drones, by the way, on this Abaddon. There is a lot. I've even seen some heavy armor rep drones on the Abaddon, so they're not even doing anything to it. There are so much reps on this Abaddon. There's no smart bombs. There's no way to remove it. I don't think they're even going to budge the arm, and it's going to get worse for them too as that reactive gets worse and worse for them.
Yeah, the Murray Rotharbo in the Augur Navy issue has managed to sneak into the back line, although there wasn't really anyone trying to stop him from getting there. And he has tackled down that Scimitar as well, so I imagine that's going to be the next target after Quinn Yi goes down. And it's just going to be a slow picking apart here, really, of Suit from Rote Kapelle.
That's one of the fun things about the Rote comp at the moment, is that the Abaddon can basically reach out and touch the Scimitar where it is, I'm pretty sure. And again, Navy, I'm just double checking to see if it's Rapids. I think it's Rapids, but I could be wrong. No, it's guns. We're good. It is a gun Armageddon Navy, so BBP is happy.
Yeah. I gotta say, it's always nice to see teams like Suit come out. I think they had a similar issue in the last Alliance tournament as well. But here's hoping that next year they'll be able to either put together some sort of six-man comp that's a bit more viable, or recruit a few more members. Obviously, the Alliance Tournament's open to anyone who wants to compete. So
yeah, I mean, if you want to join the team, I guess reach out to them. They'll probably be willing to take you. Good chance to get into the tournament because honestly, it's underman comps we have actually seen work. I believe it was it Bombers Bar? Or was it Noir? Something along those lines. Brought like an underman comp with 5 people and actually dunked the opposing team a few years back. I can't remember what team it was anymore. It's been a while, but underman can definitely work. You need to bring out the right comp to do it, and fortunately, this was not it.
I believe we saw a 9-man comp take things very, very close here last weekend as well. No,
Yeah,
hopefully at some point we see a Tinker or something like that, because those are the areas where an undermanned team can really shine.
No weak spots, exactly. You just have all thick ships just standing there, not willing to die. It can definitely work. Like there is a room somewhere in some meta mind to make an underman comp that functions really well, but the amount you lose to do it is not an easy choice to make. And most teams will just go, just bring 10 men, you get more chance of winning.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about this Megathron Navy issue, though? Why are we seeing so many of those as a battleship choice? It's not something that often gets brought.
I mean, I'm just a mega fan at heart, to be honest. So I'm going to be very biased. It's just like the Vindy's little brother. It is honestly, it's a very good ship. All things considered, the tracking bonus is one of my favorite things for it. It has no trouble really applying stuff. The Vindy uses webs to apply to things. The Mega just uses a grapple on its own guns, so it's actually very hard to hold down safely. Is kind of my own personal opinion.
Yeah, that utility high from the newt is the utility high that lets you put either a newt or a smart bomb in there is just so powerful in a tournament format like this, especially when it's effectively the cost of a T1 battleship as well, with the points reduction afforded by the Galante sponsorship of this Alliance tournament.
Not click that point reduction went to the Mega Navy. I didn't even I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. I'm actually very excited about that. The fact that it has a utility high. Like I used to fly solo megas in Null, and yeah, you have to make your own utility high by removing a gun. It's amazing what one utility high can do to a battleship. It goes from being worthless to immediately viable. Oh, goodbye Scimitar soon. You can see the entire comp just rushing over to kill it. Thank you for showing up, Suit, but unfortunately, this was not the right arena for you.
Yeah, well, they do still get another chance to play. I'm not sure if that's today or I think that's tomorrow. Yes. So it'll be very interesting to see how they do there and if they bring something similar or if they're able to refine their planning a little more.
I'm sure there's
Anyway.
looking for a channel somewhere.
There we are. That's the last ship off the grid. So we will hand it back to the studio and find out what the analysts have to say about that.
Rain, are you in an armor vagabond or something?
No, I've got XLSP.
And polarized guns or what?
Hisec, you are one of 2 people that couldn't listen and couldn't check bookmarks and find your own way out. The entire route was literally bookmarked out to Losec. I bookmarked it 10 minutes in advance!
Guys, stop being casual. They're really bad. We should not lose anybody to this. Warp off. Warp off. Take the fleet warp. Everybody warp off. This is really, really bad execution. I'm very disappointed.
And with that, despite missing some of their members who have gone to other groups, Rote Kapelle has secured their place in Alliance Tournament 19. Shut Up, I'm Trying will have one more shot tomorrow, as Jin was correct on that, to attempt to make it in past the feeders round. Obviously, there was a little bit of roughness there. Underman teams traditionally don't perform particularly well, but, as per usual, like big props, any team that shows up, thank you for showing up, even if you weren't able to get the full amount of people. It is so much better, at least for the viewers, to have something to watch than for us to have an hour of dead space. So props to you guys for showing up, even if you were a little undermanned. I will say that there are some comps that I think Jin hinted at. Moderator, like what could you do if you only had 6 people?
I mean, you can do like battleship rushes. You can do things like that and just kind of pray that you get on top and just out trade, and then you can just survive longer. Um, Way back in the day, there used to be something called a tinker comp, which would be you deliberately take a very undermanned setup. This was back when Tech 3 logistics had a lot more rep power, and both locally, and this was many years ago. But essentially, you'd create like a self-tanking sort of composition, and you just grind out the other team, kill some Logi, and then you just win. CCP over the last few years has made it so that maybe having just a death ball sit there for 10 minutes and not do anything, not the most entertaining match to watch. So we made it so you can't just transfer Passer infinitely to each other and just kind of break the laws of thermodynamics infinitely. So unfortunately these days you can't do nearly as much, but I mean, mad respect to them for showing up and trying and giving it a shot. So we appreciate them coming out.
Yep, absolutely. The other interesting one that we saw, just as kind of maybe a heads up, maybe they're listening, maybe they want some super pro tips, is we were actually seeing these. I believe they were 4 battleship setups in the Captain's Cup, which was kind of interesting, and a couple of them actually did really well by just absolutely blasting someone. So, hey, if you only got 6 pilots, maybe bring 4 battleships. I don't think you can actually do that, but do something similar, like Mod said, triple battleship, rush in there, see what can happen. We've actually seen Spectre Fleet back in the olden days do some upsets by blaster hull rushing people, and those are always fun to watch one way or another. But other than that, the only big thing that in that match that was interesting, we've seen it a lot, but we haven't talked about it. Rep drones, Mark Resurrectus. What are they? Why are they so good or bad?
So rep drones are supplemental logistics that you get from drones, right? I mean, you have a handful of different drones you can come into, or you can use coming into one of these fights. A lot of teams will opt for EC drones to try and put them on Logi and break Logi spools, or not Logi spools, but break reps. They'll afford to use sometimes heavy damage drones or medium damage drones just to supplement the damage they've already got. But a lot of groups will put, and when my team flew in the AT, we always had full racks of rep drones, because if your Logi goes down, the rep drones allow you to still have some kind of logistics on the grid even after your reps are gone, right? So if you lose that valuable Logi cruiser, or you lose your 2 Logi frigates, a lot of times those drones are the only thing that will actually keep your comp up. We've had comps before where we've had people going hard on frigate Logi, and those light armor drones were the only things that were keeping the frigate Logi alive through heavy DPS. So it is valuable to have those. Some people will sneak in, smart bombs into their comp just to kind of, drive into the wall of rep drones and try and smart bomb some of those off. So there are a lot of different ways to play against it. It is interesting whenever they, you come down to 2 teams that have to only rely on Logi drones. And then there are a lot of cool plays back and forth on how to mitigate some of that.
Yep, well said. And I think one of the big ones too is that in these battleships that can field a full flight of heavy rep drones, the heavy rep drones, a full flight of them is actually, I think it's about 30 to 40% the rep power of a Guardian. It is not an insignificant amount. They're pretty wild. Other thing we've been seeing actually quite a bit the last couple days is these Nighthawk shield rushes. Obviously, that one didn't do so well, but Laserhawks did a fantastic job. And we let's talk about this ship a little bit, because there's some interesting stuff with the graphs, and it's definitely not one of the most winningest ships of all time. But some of that is because when 2 teams use Nighthawks against each other, one of them is obviously going to lose. So, moderator, taking a look at this, we see some interesting stuff here with Nighthawks.
Yeah, so Nighthawks have been one of the ships that's been in this game for well over a decade. We see a lot of use kind of in the early days, AT7 through 9, even before I started playing in 2012, where it had a different role and was viable in that meta, where I'm sure there's maybe even a handful of people still playing from then. And then you look between the gap between AT16 and AT17, and that was when command ships got a major buff. The Nighthawk used to do a fairly anemic amount of damage, and then it nearly doubled. So it got more fitting, more tank, more resist, and now it hits like a truck.
Yes, and they can also be flown in both kiting and brawling setups. We haven't really seen any kiting Nighthawks. Their points have been slowly being jacked up over the last probably year or two. There was one AT where a very common setup was double Loki, triple Nighthawk, and then you could still bring like 3 command destroyers and 2 logistics frigates and a skybreaker. And you can't do that anymore. The points, we adjust the points every single year specifically to try and keep it a little bit fresh, which I think is a good thing, right, Mark?
Yeah, I mean the Nighthawk is so strong. You don't want to see comps that are just that, right? One of the things that's so exciting about the AT is and any of these tournaments really is how unique comps get right out the gate before they settle into a meta. But even at the meta level, there's so many different cool options with the way ships get banned and people have to adjust on the fly. High level teams do this so well that they can effectively create brand new, meta defining comps out of basically nothing, right? On, at a moment's notice. So, you don't want these comps to then just end up being 3 of the best ship, right? So, I like the Nighthawk. We've talked about it earlier a little bit. It's super strong. I don't know if it's super strong in this application, but they are a lot of fun to fly.
Yeah, they've been doing pretty well. They've obviously lost matches, they've won matches. They've technically lost more matches than they've won, according to that graph. But that is because, like, legit in AT 17 and 18, people were flying Nighthawk rushes into each other. So it's a very powerful ship. I still personally think Sleipnirs are better, but that's okay. We're all allowed to have our opinions. Even Twitch chat is allowed to have their opinion. We do have our final match of the day coming up, which is going to be of Essence versus Dracarys. So all of the matches that we've been seeing today have been non-elimination matches, with the exception of like the first 2 and then Hisec Miners versus CAStabouts. So you'll be seeing pretty much all of these teams that lost today tomorrow, which is pretty cool. So no matter who wins, tomorrow we will be doing this once more time at the same time. It will be starting at about 1700 Eve time, and we have quite a lot of matches tomorrow actually, because we'll have the final Galente Gamble matches, which is real exciting and interesting, and I'm going to leave explaining that to CCP Overload, who will be returning as host tomorrow. So make sure we put him on the spot on that.
I love it.
He will absolutely love it. We do have the bans for these teams, which is also super duper fun and exciting, with of Essence banning out the Barghest and the Leshak, and Dracarys banning out the Barghest and the Balgorn. If you are unaware of the way the rules work, if 2 teams ban the same thing, they get an additional ban. So we have, for an additional ban, Dracarys has banned out the Typhoon Fleet issue, and the Megathron Navy has been banned out as well. So we're seeing pretty much every single major battleship banned here, aren't we, Mod?
Yeah, I was going to say the only battleship we've really seen has been maybe the Hyperion, maybe the Dominic's Navy issue, or the Armageddon Navy. So a lot of the battleship staples here getting banned. Still leaves open a lot of shield options, still leaves open a lot of these, as Jin likes to call them, this maximum threat option. So not quite sure about these bans, but definitely says no battleships for you.
Yes, no battleships for you. I mean, obviously there's still quite a lot open, but the Typhoon Fleet issue, Mark, like, why? Like, what is the Typhoon Fleet issue? We've barely seen it.
I don't know, man. Like, you've already picked the Leshak as one of your bans, which I think is maybe ill-advised. We talked about. I mean, if you really didn't want to see battleships, you could also pick the Abaddon. Is good to get rid of. In this case, people fly a lot of Abaddons and armor comps. I mean, the Typhoon Fleet is fine. It's good. It is like a worse Barghest in some ways. But I don't know. I don't know if that's really the move I would make here.
That is totally fair enough. And I do think that Typhoon Fleet issues, Mod, you'll probably know this. You've got a little better grasp of history on it, but they used to be like the ship for several ATs, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah, back in kind of the 12 man format, back when I was in Exodus, we basically flew a Typhoon fleet core all the way to basically third place, and it was still good even then on for a couple more years. But changes to points and the way balance has worked out since has meant that it just really doesn't fill the same niche that it used to, and it's no longer the comp it once was.
Well, unfortunately, we will not be seeing it, so nobody will be able to prove us wrong here. But I'm sure we'll see it at some point. It always seems to make an appearance at some point. Somebody tries to bring a triple Typhoon fleet issue setup and do some super cool stuff with it. The teams are in local and are starting to land, which is super awesome. So, Mark, of Essence or Dracarys, who's winning this one?
I honestly have no idea. I can't say I know too much about either one of these teams. Essence is the money pick right now, so of course I picked the upset and have gone with Dracarys for this one. Plus, they just skinned their fort or their Keepstar. It looks great, so easy pick.
Awesome. That is it. The Keepstar skins are pretty awesome. I do like I do like seeing them. Like the skin game has always been amazing. CCP's art team has always been wonderful. Moderator, which group do you think is taking this one?
I am going to have to go with not Dracarys.
So of Essence.
Yes.
Just making sure. All right, cool. Super fantastic. All right, the teams are in. This will be our last match of the day, and we're going to hand it over to our wonderful commentary pair to take us through this wonderful spaceship explosion journey.
Hello and welcome to your main event for the evening. We have Dracarys versus of Essence. Dracarys bringing a very interesting blend of armor control and DPS rush. Here, what do we have on the of Essence side?
Well, I've got triple battleship core, Armageddon Navy, Vindicator, and Tempest fleet issue. This is not. This is actually a type of setup we saw a little bit last AT. I will also point out there's a rapid heavies on the Armageddon Navy issue. I don't like the mixed weapon systems. I feel like if you have a Vindicator and a Tempest fleet, they should be lasers on the Armageddon Navy issue. But importantly, I think the ship to look at is all three of these battleships warped to 0 on the Dracarys side is this Redeemer. It's not a ship we see a whole lot of in the AT, but it's worth noting. It's worth noticing that it has actually a large turret bonus as well as a neutralizer amount bonus. So actually does decent amounts of DPS as you see him start to chew into this Vindicator alongside his Armageddon Navy issue and Abaddon, and the Armageddon Navy issue for Dracarys is actually a laser boat.
Yeah, curious target selection going after the Vindicator. You would think they would be able to keep that sort of on the back burner with their newts alone, maybe hoping to put newts on the logistics instead. But those being logistics frigates, that's kind of a questionable call here. As meanwhile, of Essence primaring the Navitas for Dracarys, trying to take out the Tech 1 Logi frigate, not exactly known for its own tank, although it can put out a respectable amount of reps. Also, Rusun Sa of the Redeemer, getting deep into armor, about 1/3 armor now, not clawing that back very effectively. This is a bit of a race between the Redeemer and the Vindicator as who goes down first, and it could be a deciding factor in this match.
Yeah, Armageddon Navy issue, remember, from of Essence is a rapid heavy boat, so they will lose some DPS when that gets clipped. But Chad Flame and the Vindicator also in very low armor right now, able to live just barely as they win the initial battleship trade. More damage is also going low end to low end, some low end to low end violence at the moment. Thalia going down pretty low. This Exec Navy, this Navitas also falling pretty low. But the team captain of of Essence and our co-commentator, Chad Flame, has been taken down, but they will trade for at least this Exec Navy and probably the Navitas as well.
One thing to note is that of Essence seems to be distributing their neutralizers across the Dracarys team, whereas Dracarys is focusing them all on the primary target of the Thalia. Traditional logic would say that you want to neutralize the other logistic frigate so that you can put all your DPS on one, try to neut out the other, and that gives you enough to break the reps. Dracarys not employing that strategy here, but of Essence definitely is, and they're rewarded by taking that Navitas down. Now it seems like they are splitting damage a little bit. I think their low end is going for the Inquisitor while the rest tries to focus on the Exeter Navy. And sure enough, that Inquisitor drops rapidly. It may be joined by the Tempest fleet issue on the of Essence team. That will be a huge chunk of their damage. They're not out of this yet.
Yeah, the high end looks to be going for this Oracle right now of Dear Mumusan. A very effective target to take down because it's got battleship guns with somewhere between a cruiser and a battle cruiser level of DPS. Being in an attack battle cruiser, it doesn't have a whole lot of tank. But this Tempest fleet issue going down is really, really scary for them because they only have a rapid heavy boat and the Armageddon Navy issue. And this is once again going for rapid heavies over lasers might be a bit of an issue for them. They are able to take down the Oracle, so that's a lot of DPS off the field. But they're going to lose their Thalia as well as the Og Navy and the Pontifex and the Exec Navy of Dracarys are able to take that down. But this Exec Navy also soon to fall. I mean, there's just a lot of damage between of Essence, Exec Navy, and their Nurgle. They will lose their Tempest fleet issue though, so it's now 2 battleships versus 1. But the low end war has been won by of Essence.
Yeah, that Nurgle is a key player there, as well as the Svipple. Both of them deal incredible amounts of damage for ships of their size. The Nurgle is basically a pocket hack. It has the tank and damage of a Sacrilege. Now you're seeing Teskey Zealots, Navy Armageddon, beginning to be primary on Dracarys' side. He is dipping into armor respectively. As you noted, we're going to see that start and stop a little bit as the Geddon Navy runs out of clip. It's got a long way to go before he's down.
Yeah, but importantly, the Nurgle is now shooting the primary target as the Mauler just gets absolutely chunked. Oh, wrecking shots upon wrecking shots. Rip to the nuke pressure that brings from their team. But as I was mentioning, this Nurgle currently not facing any nuke pressure from the Armageddon Navy issue of Teskey is going to be able to supplant, or is it to supplement, I should say, the rapid heavy clips of Bunny in his own Armageddon Navy issue. But they are losing this Magus pretty quickly now. Of Essence, though, they got to be really careful. They're winning in points, but only barely at the moment.
You are seeing Dracarys claw this back. That's the links down. That Deacon may follow with just the low end damage here. That Armageddon Navy, he is at half armor. He's dropping relatively rapidly, but he's got probably at least one more reload from the Geddon Navy before they can
now damage going on the Nurgle.
Oh, that Urgle's dropping a lot faster than you'd expect.
Karukamuk, he's going to be able to get his ADC off and maybe try to piece together the rest of the DPS needed to get this Armageddon Navy issue, as he has been spooled up, but he's all the way down in the
Nurgle is neuted. He was not able to turn it on. He couldn't turn on his ADC.
They're going to win this one now.
Oh my gosh. The newts from the Geddon Navy absolutely clutch there, turning off the ADC. And that's the Svipple. Now just a Geddon Navy and an Exeter Navy. That is a huge, huge amount of DPS, but Dracarys is majorly up on points.
Majorly, but they will lose their Geddon Navy. And
it
Bunny,
won't be
he's
enough.
got rapid heavy clips. He might be able to, alongside this Exec Navy, take down the low end, and then we get a Geddon Navy versus ABBA. The Geddon Navy is worth more points. So that's what you have to do. This War of Attrition, kill Teskey Zealot, and then kill this Og Navy and this Pontifex as quickly as you can, hopefully before Mike Head goes down. This is actually going to go down to the wire. I already called the match, but I was wrong. Mike Head and this Exec Navy, though, if he goes down pretty quickly, this could be all over.
Oh, Dracarys is counting the beans here. They're absolutely crunching these numbers. Can they do it if they take this Exec down? It looks like they're going to. His tank is absolutely melting.
Why is the damage going on the ABBA? That's such a huge mistake from of Essence. As they lose their Exec Navy issue, Bunny and the Armageddon Navy, he can't actually single clip anyone on this team, let alone in a Abaddon.
They're going after the Abaddon because they need it. They need it. He can't clear the amount of points they need by killing the rest. He's got to bring the Abaddon down before the time goes.
No, it's 21 points versus 19. You have to clear the Og Navy and the Pontifex. It's less EHP.
I don't know. They're 11 points off.
Abba's still got rapid heavy clips going into him, but he still is going to be able to constantly pump out damage. And importantly, he's going to be able to get his Ansel reloads in while this has his clips, and he's clipped out right now. No, he's still
that Geddon has a local repper. That is going to spell the end of it for of Essence. That is a local repper Abaddon. They've managed to keep one of its low slots in reserve for what I presume is an Ansel repper. So he is going to be clawing that hit points back, even without a logistics ship on his side of the field. That is absolutely gut-wrenching for Bunny. He had to see that armor tick back up and just have his heart sink.
Yeah, I mean, it really sucks as a rapid heavy ship when you're up against active armor ships. They're both currently sitting at about the same armor percent armor remaining. But once this Armageddon Navy issue of Bunny runs out of his rapid heavy clip, it's going to be the Abaddon show. He's still firing missiles though right now, so hasn't clipped out quite yet. He's leading for the time being, but the second he hits his rapid heavy reload, this Abaddon, if he's smart, is going to stop his Ansel armor repair module, reload it, and the reload times are about equal between the two modules, so we'll be able to have it back up in time to tank back up against this Armageddon Navy issue.
What a knife's edge match. This went back and forth several times. Could have gone either way at various points in this matchup. But now you're seeing Dracarys with just superior target calling, managing to keep their composure and claw their way back into this match, killing off the low end of Essence. And now they're just sitting fairly comfortably. This Abaddon, he's about half armor, but he can keep pulling that back, and it's just not going to be enough. There's a minute and a half left. He may not even go down before the end of time here.
I mean, this rapid heavy clip, he's going into Frederick right now. He's got the damage back on top of him. 29% armor remaining on this Abaddon. 56% armor remaining on this Geddon Navy. If somehow Bunny is able to take down this Abaddon before the end of the match, and before he clips out, because at this point he only has time for one reload and a little bit in his Armageddon Navy issue, but it's actually going down to the wire. I already called this match for Dracarys twice, but it's 6%, 3% armor remaining for Frederick de Grosse. He's all the way into structure now.
Dracarys is doing whatever he can.
Really close.
They're putting drones on drones. They're trying to eke out.
He's on to Frederick de Grosse. Frederick de Grosse, he's already down into 63% structure remaining. Can't he get this Ansel reload off in time? That is what matters at the end of the day. 30 seconds remain in the match. 50% structure remaining. And the Armageddon Navy issue has clipped out. He is out of damage for the foreseeable future. And that will be the match. Dracarys, they had us worried there for a little bit, but they come out on top of Essence. 11 seconds remaining. The Abaddon will live. Armageddon Navy issue of Bunny also going to live, but that is it for the last match of the day of Essence. Will be going into the lower bracket, and Dracarys will be going on to the main tournament. We're going to send this to a quick break. When we return, the desk will break down that match and bring us right to the end of the day. You won't want to miss it. See you after this.
Pew, 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 pew. Pew, pew, pew. I buried the pot.
Farmer's Bar could be anywhere.
%46 structure remaining was all that was there between Dracarys and of Essence's victory or defeat. Fantastic match. Really, really awesome one to kind of end the day at. We got to see a Redeemer. That's pretty cool. We actually saw that a decent amount last year. But, you know, Maud, what was the highlights of that match for you?
So the highlight of the match for me personally was looking at Dracarys being able to take out the Thalia just in time for them to also lose their low end. And once the Thalia was down, Karkin Bergerberg, as Deacon went down, had that Thalia live just a little bit longer, I think that actually is what turns it in favor of Essence. Then, you know, later on we saw the hardeners of that Abaddon get shut off, actually, which is why he was taking so much damage in the very last seconds of the fight.
We did, but we saw some awesome cargo container drops. I think right at the end there, the Abaddon was able to reload and get the hardeners back on and start repping a bit. I don't know if that was enough to save it. I think it might have lived anyways there, but Mark, like,
man,
wild match, right?
Yeah, man, wild. It was so close. We were talking about it during the fight in the back channels. It's just when you're in that situation and you have to count rep cycles, you're counting injector cycles, you're counting how long you can keep your guns up, how much cap you have left. Like that, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that like makes the game feel like something that's not just point and click spreadsheet simulator. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing about this that is more exciting, I feel like, than those moments where you're down to the wire and you have to like make a decision, win or lose. Like you have to do something. And I was thrilled to death to see my pick pull out, but both those teams played that very, very well.
They did, and neither team is out. They will actually be. One of them is going through to the actual tournament, which is fantastic for them. Obviously, the other one will have an attempt to make it through. Tomorrow will be quite a bit of elimination matches. We will be seeing many, many returning faces. Speaking of tomorrow, we will be doing this again at 1700 Eve time. So same time as today. Will be a little bit more matches, which is pretty cool and exciting, and more spaceship explosions, and we'll figure out who the last group of people that are going to be making it towards the official tournament, which is in August, and those who are going to be going home sad and alone in the cold, dark reaches of space.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little dejected, yes. Other than that, though, fantastic matches from every team today. We've had some absolutely wild ones. Personally, I just love that we started the day off with just really good matches back to back to back. Maud, were there any that you saw today that you were like, yeah, this is the one, like, go rewatch this?
Honest to God, I think it was probably the one we just ended it on.
Yeah.
This one is definitely like a hype match. And the one we had, prior to where we saw a Pandemic Horde against OnlyCows was probably one of the more technical matches. If you want to understand how do I run an ECM comp, go back and watch Hydra VODs, go back and watch yesterday's match, because that's how you do it.
All right, what about you, Mark? Any standout matches today?
I mean, I'd say that I echo Maud's comments. The last two matches, or the last couple matches, were just, especially this last match, to have it come down to the wire like that with such a great cast of commenters on that match. It is as good as you can hope for a round of feeder turn or a round of feeder matches. Day 3. This is fun, man. I absolutely love it when it comes down like that.
Perfect. Well, this will be the end of our stream. So to say absolutely massive thanks as usual to all the back-end people, all of our fantastic refs, all the commentators, all the analyses, all the CCP people. I always love to do my big shout out to General Stargazer specifically, who is now known as CCP Zealous and does all of the tournament rules and all the crazy stuff and makes this happen. Big shout out to CCP Convict. He's running the overall Twitch moderation and doing all of that fun and fantastic points. So he's the one that when you do exclamation point refund, that does nothing for you. So pretty great. But he's the one that's getting the streams or the skins out and all that great stuff. Thank you to the ISD moderators for keeping Twitch chat under control, because I know you guys like to get a little bit wild in there every once in a while. Obviously, thanks to Even T and the staff members in there. Thank you to Bay Art J and Disc, because you guys do so many amazing things for us. Please stick around for the end of the stream. We are going to be raiding Oz, who is about to have a CCP guest on his stream and is going to be talking about them. It's going to be CCP Psych, who is the director of the economy and the systems for EVE Online. So I'm sure all of you have so many valid and awesome opinions about that, and should definitely go over there and watch to hear all the exciting and interesting things that are going to be said there. I've been Blackbear Pirate, a temporary host for today, and we will see you all tomorrow at 1700. Have a good night.